Hello, everyone. Welcome back to uh, the social club, if you want to call it that. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope you guys can hear me. Again, I'm still figuring out this new mic situation that I have. All right, looks like that it is okay. Anyway, hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing okay. This is yet another episode where we're hanging out here, doing this show here. So open invite as always, but just hanging out. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Again, hopefully you guys can hear me all right with all that. Let me just There we go. All right. So, hello everyone. Hope everyone's doing okay. Yeah. So, yeah, sorry if I seem a little frazzled. I always get back from church doing these things. Anyway. Yes, hope everyone's doing okay. I'm just another lazy Sunday. Feeling a lot better from the brief illness that I had. So that's good. Anyway, hopefully everyone's doing well. I am just chilling. Two other people are here. I know I am one of them because I generally like to watch in on who's reading. Yes, hopefully everyone's doing well today. And again, hopefully the mic situation is working. I did get some complaints that people could only hear it from the right side, but I figured out how to fix that on OBS, so that shouldn't be much of a problem anymore. So I don't know about StreamYard though, so there you go. Yes, hopefully everyone's doing okay. But if you're here, feel free to comment. Don't worry, I don't bite. I promise. There have been 20 of these so far. This is 21. I can't believe we're at 21. I didn't think this series will be going on that long, but hey ho, what are you gonna do? So yeah, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, I've been busy. I wrote a review of Lonesome Dove, so I may do an actual video review of it because my beloved audience, that's you all, voted on it. To do a if I should just do a review or if I should just leave the discussion I had with Matt and Tori and Joseph and a good couple of other people. People were like, no, we want to see a review. So hopefully soon after I get back from Florida anyway, because I will be heading to Florida this week. We'll be there throughout the whole week, and then I'll be back on the 3rd. So just in time to put out another video that I'm really hoping to put up for Wednesday, so I'm glad that we're getting back on the 3rd because that's quite nice. Um, yeah, so hey, if anyone wants to come, and I'm just feel free. I don't bite. Part of this show is interacting with you all, my beloved audience. Anyway, but yes, I generally do these when Matt over at Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews, or no, it's not Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews. It's Matt on Books who does uh the pub. Hello, Chadia. How you doing? Beloved, yes, they are my beloved audience. Because honestly, I wouldn't be able to be doing this, my content, if you will, without you all. So there you go. Hello, Tharnell. How you doing? Hopefully, you guys can hear me well. It sounds like you guys can, so I won't harp on it too much longer. Um, but yeah, so I'm kind of done with the books I have to read for February, but my dad just recently was like, "Hey, Britton, do you want to read The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis while we're out in Florida?" And I'm like, there was something I wanted to read while I was out in Florida. So you know what? I guess I will. And this is actually gonna be a reread for me because I read The Great Divorce long time ago. It's been a while though, so I've kind of forgotten what it's about. So I'll have to read it. But I do like Lewis. I read Mere Christianity for the first time last year with my dad. So maybe we'll have another dad son book club discussion video like we did for Mere Christianity. It's funny you ask what you're reading. I am not reading anything at the moment. I finished The Good Lord Bird last night. I did start Blackheart Man, but I just kind of lost interest in it. Not because it's bad. It was well written. I just, realized I just wasn't feeling it. I just put it down. So yeah, there you go. Sometimes that happens. Um, but I read, but yeah, soon. Probably the last thing I'm going to be starting anyway in February. I don't know if I'm going to finish it in February, but that book is The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. So there you go. Again, it's been a while since I've read this. I'm not as it's not one that sticks with me like a Narnia or a Grief Observed, which I think is his best book. I think it was his last one. So, or actually, no, I think it was Till We Have Faces was his last one. I'd have to ask Sam. He knows a lot better on these things than I do. Yes, it's going to be a reread for me. So I know it's kind of, if I remember correctly, it is Lewis's kind of his take on William Blake's Marriage of Heaven and Hell, which is a great read. Read the first issue of Animal Man. Which Animal Man run? I'm actually hoping to read for my first big Morrison-a-thon read. I'm going to be reading Grant Morrison's Animal Man run, so I'm looking forward to that. I also read Jeff Lemire's Animal Man last year for Year of Lemire, which I quite liked. I thought it was pretty good. Hello, Oso. It's been a while since I've seen you around here. Hope you're doing well. So, what are you all reading though? Since you asked me, I'll ask you guys. What are you guys all reading at the moment? Now we got 8 people. All right, awesome. Glad to see it. Let me just. Berserk is very good. It's really dark though. I mean, good God. Um, oh, Thinner's a good one. It's a bit. That's one of his Bachman ones, if I remember correctly. Um, yeah. So there you go on that. Chadia, you were reading a. That's right, Ridley Walker. I've heard of that one. That's the one with the. I don't want to say the fictional language because it's not really a fictional language, but it's like it's kind of like. Oh, hello, Daniel Bex. I hope Bex is feeling well. I know she was going through. You know what? I actually won't say because I don't. She shared it on Threads. That's how I know. But glad to see you here, Daniel. Magica, I think that is Clive Barker. I've wanted to read Clive Barker for a long time. I just don't know where to start with him. I actually own a few of his books. I have Weave World and one of the Hellraiser books. Actually, no, I have read. I read the Hellbound Heart. I did like it. Quite strange. Hello? I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry. We got someone in here though. We got him. You know him. You love him. Raph. How you doing, Raph?
I don't know about the whole loving thing. Anyway, no, I'm all right. It's been an interesting day. I managed to further hurt my teeth, which is always a good thing to do on a Sunday.
Oh boy, that's
No, it's fine. Like years ago, because like everything that's wrong with my teeth is stuff that I have done with blunt instruments and blunt force. Yeah, like years ago, I had like an accident, like a fall, and I knocked out part of my right back molar all the way to the back, and it got fixed with like some like plastic whatever thing. The things that like dentists do to close up like half broken teeth in a sense, right? And yeah, that part broke off while I was eating pizza. So I don't know what to make of that. So it's not
yeah,
working
no,
in any
that's
case. It's just frustrating. But I have a dentist appointment coming up on Friday anyway, so I guess it's all fine and perfect timing.
yeah, no, that always that's always fun. You know,
Oh yeah.
I was sometimes I haven't had a tooth fall out because of what I've ate, but I've had like fillings fall out because I would be eating something and it would just come out and I'd have to Go to the dentist to get it. It actually happened recently. That was what my
Oh
most
no.
recent dentist thing was on.
Well, cheers. But no, to be fair, like I don't have like any fillings or anything of the sorts. Like as I like everything's wrong with my teeth is because I use blunt force.
Oh, geez. Well, all right then.
Hey, Oso, how you doing?
Yeah. Anyway, I was telling them about my new mic situation. I mean, I still have my Shure that I still use, but it's different because I got some new equipment. But anyway, yeah, my dad and I are gonna be reading The Great Divorce while I'm out in Florida. Should be fun.
Yeah.
This is gonna be a reread for me. It's been a while since I've read The Great Divorce, actually, because like when I was younger, I read a bunch of like religious literature and like atheist literature. It was quite fun.
Oh. I
Not
just
always.
started I
Or,
just started reading The Magic Mountain because I really hate myself.
The Magic Mountain. I don't know if I know what that is.
The Magic Mountain by Thomas Mann. It's Der Zauberberg. It's one of those classics of German literature. It's long as fuck and it's complicated. It might be proto magical realism. But it's also satire. It's also set in like a psychiatry place, like a mental hospital. So there's a lot goes on there. Is what I'm saying.
No,
It's the kind of book that wins you a Nobel Prize. Is what it is at the end of the day.
well, I can't say I've heard of it. Max Garfield's here. How you doing? Thomas Mann. I thought for some reason that was the guy who was King Henry VIII's advisor, but that's Thomas More.
Yeah.
And Thomas Cromwell. A lot of Thomases.
Yeah. I mean, Thomas Mann is probably the sort of like most important German writer, author of the 20th century, I would argue. Yes, there's going to take a ass, but fuck that guy. No, like the whole Mann family is interesting because like his older brother Heinrich Mann also wrote a novel called German, it's Der Untertan. I don't know. It has different titles in English. It's about a German. It's a satire of German nationalism under the Kaiser in like the early 1900s, and it's really, really good, but also really angry. Like, and then obviously there's Klausmann, which is the son of Heinrich, I think. So, and he wrote a book uh, called Mephisto, which is there's a lot of stuff in there. Like the whole Mann family is all over the place. Like the son or grandson of one of the Manns is Gollo Mann, who's a German historian who wrote a massive biography of Wallenstein, which is one of those like generals during the 30 Years' War. So yeah, this is like German high culture, is what I'm saying.
What set you on this path, Raph? Or well, I should say, this path of reading Thomas Mann.
Well, it's been a long time. I read parts of it in school, but it's been a while. And for my offline book club, I'll have to read The Impusium by Olga Tokarczuk, which is, a Polish writer, won a Nobel Prize, that kind of stuff. And that one is also set in a mental hospital, and it clearly plays on and plays around with and references the Magic Mountain. So I figured I'll be the annoying smartass and read the other book again, so I can refresh my memory and point out all of the things that my other book club friends have missed, because I'm that kind of asshole.
Sounds like Thomas Mann had some problems. We'll just say.
Definitely some. Wasn't a big fan of the Nazis though. Moved to America, to the US during the Nazi era.
Well, yeah, we'll give him that. Didn't like the Nazis. Then again, like you'd be hard pressed to find anybody who likes Nazis aside from like those fucking crazy people who are like neo Nazis at the like Unite the Right.
There were a lot of people in like German culture and so forth that made their peace with the regime and just worked through the whole thing. Made films about it, for example, right? So it's not that like everyone who did culture stuff left Germany in like in the 1930s. Yes, the Frankfurt School did because they're cool, um,
You
but
know those communist guys who are all like, oh yeah, who like made communism like a mainstream thing. I do.
the Frankfurt School is not communist.
Marxist. I don't know.
Almost post-Marxist. They're about critical theories. They're obviously influenced by reading Marx, of course, and they are genuinely somewhere on the
Oh,
left.
hello,
But
Jimmy.
but there's a lot to be learned about the Frankfurt School. The Frankfurt School is the Institute for Social Studies in Frankfurt, and they do a lot of different things. Like there's people that do studies on music, philosophy of music. Theodor Adorno, famously, a lot of stuff he does is about classical music and stuff like that. He also obviously does other things. Herbert Marcuse is part of that. Later people, Jürgen Habermas is part of that tradition, and he's a very much a classic liberal in a lot of ways.
Oh, I
So
like that guy then.
you might. His main thing is like deliberative democracy. So it's a lot of like having public spaces where actual deliberation can be had in a society to sort of like decide where to go, and that's kind of his stuff. And so there's a lot of stuff that is pulled into that whole idea of the Frankfurt School. The problem is, of course, that because a lot of them were Jewish, the Nazis really hated them, and that's where the whole idea of cultural Bolshevism comes from, because they were not exactly fans of not necessarily fans of the Soviet Union, and clearly they saw, unlike some other philosophers, they were very much aware of the fact that Stalinism is authoritarianism under a different guise than Nazism, but like they were aware of that. So the idea of calling it cultural Bolshevism was a way for the Nazis to sort of like tie Jewishness to communism, to then use anti-communist rhetoric to further their anti-Semitism, and to use anti-Semitism to further their anti-communist agendas, because those two things are obviously interlinked. And that's where you get your cultural Marxism from, because that's exactly what the people using the word cultural Marxist are referring to, which is, the cultural Bolshevism. So yeah, if someone uses the term cultural Marxist, they're either ignorant or they're actually using explicit Nazi vocabulary. So don't do that, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think he's referencing the Nazis. Yes, Henry Ford was a rather notorious anti-Semite. I think if I remember right, he actually gave out pamphlets of the protocols of Elders of Zion.
Yes. So Henry Ford bought a newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, and ran all the things that he wanted to have heard there and so forth. And in the Dearborn Independent, he did in fact reprint and republish in sequence the protocols of the Elders of Zion at a point where they were already debunked as a forgery, right?
Mm-hmm.
He still did that, and he famously had a portrait of Adolf Hitler on his desk for a while. And big fan. Henry Ford, big fan of Hitler.
You know who else was a big fan of Hitler? Charles Lindbergh.
That is very much true, and I
No,
know
he was
you have read The Plot Against America.
I have, yes, and it's one of those. I don't like Philip Roth. I think he's rather I'll put it this way. I don't really like books about. I'll put it this way. I'm not really a fan of the neurotic Jew trope. I think it's rather it's kind of annoying. I mean, if you want, John, you can. If you don't want to, that's fine too. But
yeah, but like, I mean, I feel like I've not read
it is a book I
more
keep
of.
thinking about, though, since
Yes,
recent events in my country where I'm like, maybe Roth was onto something. I still don't like his books all that much.
I've only read The Plot Against America. I do really, what I appreciate about it is how he does very clearly showcase sort of like how the thing kind of creeps in, and suddenly you're in this different world, and how long, depending on who you are, how long it takes for you to actually realize that shit has changed, and like how long you can live in denial, right? Like that stuff I think is really important in how he deals with that in The Plot Against America. with the main narrator and his brother, who is very much seduced by the system in a lot of ways when he gets on that is put on that program to go into the countryside and learn how to be a proper American and be Jewified, I guess, in a lot of ways. So I think he does a really good job of that because, yeah, the danger is not the people in jackboots marching in the streets, because they are too blunt and too obvious. The danger is like all the other stuff that is happening on the sides. We're like, well, at least it's clean, and look how good they look with all those clean pressed shirts and uniforms and shit. Like it's all the sort of like insidious shit happening on the side, and that's the dangerous part. And I
There
think he
was
captures
even
that.
a Nazi rally in America in 1939, which is actually covered in Ed Brubaker's excellent comic him and Sean Phillips did together called Pulp, where two old men rip off the Nazis, who are some Nazi people who were involved in that. So it's a very good read.
Yeah, that I mean, those images from that Nazi rally in
yeah, it's kind of shocking, at least it was for me when I learned about it. I was like, damn, really?
Like those images are infamous, but like there has been other stuff like that's tied to that. It's not just the German Bund. There's also obviously the Silver Shirts and Father Coughlin, a Catholic priest with a radio show who was very much pro-Nazi for a while. There's a lot of Nazi sympathies in America, in U.S. history in the 1930s that has sort of been pushed to the side and deliberately been ignored. The same way that like very few US citizens know about the business plot, which is one of those things you really, really should know about. And remember the names of the people that actually were part of that.
Yeah, it's again, I guess I just like books where things happen. I'm not really a fan of. Well, I mean, I did read The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, and that's kind of not really a slice of life book. There is a plot, but whatever. I don't like Philip Roth, is my point.
Yeah. Max Garfield, that's interesting with Death in Venice. I think it's internationally, it's probably the most well-known. I feel like
I've heard that name before.
Yeah, Death in Venice, I feel it's internationally well known. The Magic Mountain is very well known internationally. I think in Germany, he's most famous for Buddenbrooks, which is a family saga, historical fiction, almost historical novel about a family, like several generations of a trading merchant family in northern Germany. So that's what's most known about Thomas Mann in Germany, but internationally, I think it's Death in Venice or Magic Mountain.
I'll let my cat in real quick. Get on in.
But yeah, we were just talking about Philip Roth, like when it comes to Thomas Mann as an author, he's that status when it comes to German authors. Like he's the sort of like German author of the 20th century in a lot of ways. The same way that someone like, say, Thomas Pynchon or McCarthy or Philip Roth are sort of like the American, like the US authors of the 20th century in a lot of ways, right?
I guess it's the same reason I don't really like John Updike's books. There's only so many books I can read about guys angsting about getting older and banging women that I can stomach before I can just go, yeah, I just don't care about this. I mean, but I'm already in my life angsting about getting older and angsting about women. I mean, I don't want to read about other people who do that. That's the point I'm trying to make. There's some of his other books. Plot Against America doesn't really have that very much.
No. I mean, the sad part is if you look at like where we are in the world right now, and if you look at like how much the misogyny and all the misogyny and incel bullshit tied around Gamergate, how much of that stuff was like the force that brought Donald Trump into power in 2016. It's very hard to not to write anything historical about U.S. politics or like any other like country in the global north, I guess, and not talk about people who are incredibly angsty about sex and women. Like that's unfortunately what drives history at the moment, is dudes who are incredibly insecure about sexuality. It's sad but true. So I guess Updike and Roth were just ahead of the curve there.
Stanislaus Lem's The Kitsch of Fascism, Making Dumb Bullies Believe They Are Noble Knights. It's a good parallel to Hannah Arendt's Banality of Evil, Just Doing My Job. It's an interesting point. I've not read any Lem, though, so I have no comments on that specific book.
Stanislav Lem is incredibly good. Like I haven't read all of I've read a couple of Lem's works. I should read more of it. He's really good. Also, apparently, a real asshole. Once again, real misogynist in a lot of ways. So there's that. But
also, I remember Philip K. Dick actually. He was one of the few sci-fi authors that Philip K. Dick actually liked. Though he also thought he was like a Soviet plant or something like that, because Philip K. Dick was kind of crazy.
Philip K. Dick definitely was kind of paranoid at that point. So yeah. But like Stanislav Lem, really, really good writer. Like Solaris, really good book. The Astronauts, really good book. The Futurological Congress, really good. Professor Tarantoga's what's it called? I need to I've read a lot of those in German and not in English, so I need to figure out the titles. But like, it's basically about this pair of inventors that explain how they've managed to invent a device that can uninvent unfortunate inventions. So they can basically make inventions, disappear. And then it goes all about like those, all the problems with time travel and fixing stuff in history and shit like that. There's so many fun, the Star Diaries, there's so many fun things that Stanislav Lem has written, so definitely worth checking out. Really good writer.
Well, I hope not, Mac. That'd be kind of weird. It does sound like something Philip K. Dick would write about. It's like, oh, we're all just plants, man, and you're like, what? What are you talking about, Phil? Yeah, again, he was kind of off the rocker at that point.
You're right about the geometry part, Thornall. That's definitely, like, I remember when I first read the Astronauts, and it has this whole thing about how gravity, very strong gravity does also sort of like distort vision and shit like that. And you have like pages of like mathematical formulae and like descriptions of like how that changes. So yeah, he definitely puts the hard in hard sci-fi there. So great author.
Yeah, I thought about reading Solaris, because I know that was made into the famous Tarkovsky movie.
Isn't the most Soviet plant the humble potato, because you can make vodka out of it? Anyway.
Sorry. I don't know if I get that joke. No, but
oh yeah, he does the same thing in Solaris. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, but the next book I'm going to be... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ref.
Yeah, like I think Ursula Le Guin also appreciated Stanislav Lem. So, I guess he comes with good recommendations, I guess. So what's the next book you're going to read?
Well, aside from The Great Divorce, I am going to be starting... Hold on. I'll just go grab them from my bookshelf.
Yeah, so I guess for now I'm going to read Thomas Mann and then something else. Yeah, The Impusium. And of course, keep plugging away at that book on late theory and Frederick Jameson, because, got to do stuff.
Very nice. Anyway, I am going to be starting the only fantasy series that I plan to read in 2026, at least for the moment. That is, of course, Jade City by Fonda Lee, which I've been looking forward to for a while, because a lot of my friends are like, this is really good. And
it just doesn't sound like anything I'd be interested in, but I have her her upcoming one, The Last Contract of something vaguely Japanese sounding, which seems to be cyberpunk, cyber samurai stuff, and that sounds like something I might be interested in because of cyberpunk.
I mean, it's like a kung fu crime saga. I'm like, I want to read that. That sounds
Yeah,
fun.
but like here's the thing: I never grew up on kung fu movies, so it's not something like I have like any emotional attachment to. So a lot of the sort of like a lot of the nostalgia appeal that I think got a lot of people into that, which is like, oh no, look, it's like The Godfather, but also kung fu, and I'm like, yeah, but why would I care, right? Why would I care? And that might be
And
just like my specific, growing up and interests, but like, yeah, I don't know.
and then after that, I'm going to be, alongside that, I'm going to be reading The Searcher by Tana French or Tana French. I don't know, because reading a lot of crime novels this year. And after that, I may read The Stars My Destination, because I'm kind of starting off the books I'm hoping to read in 2020. The 10 books I'm hoping to get to before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Jade City is one of them. Well, that
Okay.
whole trilogy is, and Stars My Destination is going to be on there too. So it's either going to be in
Stars My
March or
Destination
April.
is really good. I really enjoyed Stars My Destination. There's a lot of like existentialism in there. It's like, if you've read your Nietzsche, you might enjoy Stars My Destination a bit more. But it's
I
a
do
fun
enjoy
book.
Nietzsche. I don't always agree with Nietzsche, but I do enjoy him. Well, I more don't like a lot of the people who read him because they can be quite insufferable.
The thing is, Nietzsche is very much insufferable as well. Like, but it takes a lot of like these ideas that you find that come from Nietzsche and that you kind of find in some of like what Robert E. Howard is doing, and Alfred Bester takes some of that and puts it into The Stars My Destination. But he's a lot more subtle about. He's more subtle about it than someone like Robert E. Howard, because clearly Alfred Bester is much better educated than Robert E. Howard. Interesting what you said with the Slavs and the Vikings there, Thornall. Just earlier today, I watched a lecture that Timothy Snyder was giving at some event in Canada to Ukrainians living in Canada about Ukrainian history and tying Ukrainian history to the Lord of the Rings, Wonder Woman, Marvel Comics, and stuff like that, and Star Wars even. So, and he talks a lot about how Norse mythology or the parts of Norse mythology that we know these days is something that was heavily influenced by different Norse people moving into Ukraine as, the Rus and so forth, and how those influences have shaped Norse mythology in a way that, we now know through stuff like the Thor comics and shit like that. So good stuff. But I, just watched that like, I don't know, 2 hours ago. So interesting that you mentioned that.
I did watch a
Hey,
video
Alicia.
once called Shit Nietzsche Says, and it's pretty hilarious. It's very good stuff. I showed it to a friend of mine who is one of those guys who really likes Nietzsche and like unironically calls himself an Ubermensch. And he was like, "This is ridiculous." And I'm like, what are you gonna do? How's it going, Joe?
You're right, Thornell, but it's also easy to read as much Bester as there is because there isn't that much Alfred Bester.
I was about to say, yeah, he didn't do all them. I mean, he did. I mean, I know some fun facts, like he wrote the Green Lantern creed that is on the lantern. He also created Solomon Grundy, a couple other characters, which is funny. I actually have the Starman series, and I have a suspicion that James Robinson is a fan of Alfred Bester because not only is some of the trades in that saga, if you want to call it that, is named after Alfred Bester stories. But
Okay.
he also has Solomon Grundy apparently in Starman, who is a Alfred Bester creation. So
Okay. Hey, Joe, and I will give you an exact count of wizards and unicorns once I'm done with the Magic Mountain Ori. But it's a long book. The audiobook is like 38 hours. That is longer than Deadhouse Gates. That's a solid like 900 page book. So yeah, I'll give you a count.
But yeah, anyway, that's basically what I'm going to be reading. I guess since I'm thinking about it, I'll put it in my backpack because I'll be taking that to Florida with me. Yeah. There we go. You know what? I'll also put The Great Divorce in there. So there you go. I'll put in the bookmarks later.
There's to be fair though, there's a lot of things that Jordan Peterson does not understand. It's a long list of things, or at least there's a lot of things that Jordan Peterson pretends to not understand. And well, at this point in time, probably his brain is so cooked that yes, he doesn't understand any of these things. But
yeah, he kind of went down that right wing Reddit rabbit hole and kind of went nuts after that.
Huh. Yeah, see, the thing with Alfred Bester is that that I feel he's one of those authors that are more like an author's author. That like a lot of like later sci-fi authors are like, well, clearly Alfred Bester is the thing that you need to read because he inspired me, and that's kind of what you get from a lot of these people. And then you go back and it's like, well, oh, there's only The Stars My Destination and The Demolished Man and not much more. He's also been influential in heavy metal circles. There's a song about it's called The Stars My Destination by a British band, Dark Forest, that is really good and catchy. And of course, one of America's premier nerd bands, the Lord Weird Slowfack, have a song, at least one song, if not more than one song, on the album Hardworlder about The Stars My Destination, the song case being, of course, Tiger Tiger. But they also have songs about the Traveler sci-fi role-playing game on the same album.
I did. I know a lot of other authors like him. I've saw like Samuel Delaney likes him, and M. John Harrison, and a lot of the new wave guys. So like Michael Moorcock and
Yeah.
Harrison and
yeah, because he is sort of like breaking the mold. He's one of the authors that John W. Campbell didn't like, which is, I think, mentioned in Astonished.
Probably a good thing.
So similar to someone like Ray Bradbury, he's not yet part of the new wave, but he's certainly already breaking with the very specific sort of golden age Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov, Robert A. Heinlein, and so forth style of science fiction in a lot of ways. He's already breaking with that because he's edgier and brings in that existentialism stuff and so forth in books like The Demolished Man and The Stars My Destination.
Well, you're getting me really excited to read Stars My Destination.
Yeah. He does appeal to the new wave of sci-fi because he's sort of like a bit of a pathfinder for them, I guess.
And of course, because he writes all the forewords. Well, probably not too much at the moment because legal and social pariah. But Neil Gaiman wrote the foreword of my edition that I own of Stars My Destination because, of course, he did. But yeah, I know he likes it, and yeah, it's been quite influential on a lot of people. I even think I know you've been reading William Gibson recently. I think even he likes Stars My Destiny, if I recall correctly. I could be wrong.
I'm pretty sure he does.
I know he was more into like the beats, which
very much into the beats.
Yeah, I would love to read William Burroughs' science fiction at some point, but I'm kind of like. It's funny. It's kind of like Philip K. Dick. I love Philip K. Dick, but like there are points where he gets a little too into the weird and the psychedelic, or maybe not psychedelic. He didn't take psychedelics, but like too much into that weird esoteria, and basically when he had that nervous breakdown and wrote ballads.
Have you read Naked Lunch?
I have not. I've been hesitant to, honestly.
It's an experience.
I've heard that, yes.
In particular, like when it comes to the like, if you have like a newer edition, it does have like a lot of like essays and stuff that he wrote afterwards in the back, and where there's like a lot of like reflection on what it means to be a junkie, what it means to be addicted to heroin and so forth. So there is a lot of interesting stuff in there. So definitely Definitely recommend reading Naked Lunch, but certainly do it when you're in the right mindset and like right frame of mind. It's not not the kind of book for every day, right? It's something for special occasions.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know, Alicia, if you saw my video recently on Black History Month recommendations that I put up, but I did mention you because I mentioned If Beale Street Could Talk because we read that last year with Darko. I would still love to have a conversation with you and Darko about it, but I don't know what Darko's been doing. I haven't heard from him in a while. I won't talk too much about that whole thing, but yes, I agree with you. That's probably going to be an absolute debacle. What is one of Kite? I can't pronounce that. Kij Johnson's favorite novels? Or are you talking about the?
That's Alfred Bester still, I think.
Okay. Yeah, no, but I'm looking forward to The Stars My Destination. It's one I've wanted to read for a good many years because it's so influential in science fiction, And I did start out initially. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like Daniel Green. I kind of started out as a science fiction aficionado, and then fantasy kind of it's like, get out of the way. Like, I'm taking over. So there you go. That's fine. You know what's funny? I did see a video of Daniel Green's recently, and in the thumbnail, it's so hilarious. He looks like he's like it looks like he's absolutely loaded out of his mind. Like, I'm just like, dude, you couldn't have taken a better photo. Like, chill.
Which one?
Chill out, bro. But anyway,
which video was that?
Oh, let me find it. I'm sure I can find it somewhere. I mean, I don't really watch a lot of Daniel Green these days because, again, I'm just not really interested in the content much anymore. It's kind of, where is it? Oh, it said she made 6 figures spamming AI books. That's it. And you look at the thumbnail, and he just looks like he's just smoked a shitload of weed, and it's hilarious. So there you go.
Which is fine.
No, that is fine. It's funny that, like, why did you use that photo out of all the other photos that you could have used?
I don't know. Maybe it's an AI picture, and they said like make an image of Daniel Green in AI, and that's what they did.
Maybe
Which would be my choice is like if you're making a video about AI, that's like a generative AI. That's the one time you can get away with using artificial intelligence as a tool to create your thumbnail.
Like quiche. Okay, yeah. But no, I haven't. I might read it in March because it's like there's one of my goals this year, aside from reading more crime books, is to read more science fiction books. So yeah, I might start that out with Stars My Destination. I am looking forward to it.
I mean, it's a relatively short and quick and fast read.
I've heard it's kind of a riff on the Count of Monte Cristo as well, but I don't know. People could correct me on that.
Yes and no. I mean, it's a story of someone who gets left behind and then comes back to and has to free himself from a prison, and is because he has superpowers. If every story of someone being in prison and coming back after a while and being suddenly rich and powerful or whatever is a riff on the Count of Monte Cristo, then I guess technically sort of almost Wuthering Heights also counts. I don't know. I think like the idea of someone being
funny?
wrong.
I've been seeing a lot of the content about Wuthering Heights recently, and I'm just like, God, like, who gives a crap? Like, I don't know. It's kind of funny.
I mean, look, I understand why there is so much about it, because on the one hand, it has some really famous actors in there. It's a very famous, well, not famous, like a well-known director. It's a classic of a novel, and it is more or less deliberately provocative in a lot of ways, which is probably part of the marketing. I guess it's like piss people off so people watch it and then make hate content about it, I guess. So I get why the content, why so many people feel the need to talk about it. So that's why I think there is so much about it.
Yeah, no, it's I don't know. It's just kind of I mean, yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Oh, so I just don't think his content's that interesting anymore. It's not as critical as it used to be. Like if you watch like Daniel Green, like back in the day, 2 or 3 years ago, is that even back in the day anymore? I don't know, but like 2 or 3 years ago, you watch the videos. They're very different. Like they're more laid back and more critical, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So, Ori, I think it's, yeah. I mean, it's worthwhile talking about because it is about the where we are when it comes to cultural production right now, right? I just watched a Bro Additional's video on the remake, on the current Wuthering Heights adaptation. I think that one was really good because it went beyond. Oh no, they didn't do the book justice. When yeah, most adaptations have not been very faithful to the novel, so that's not the point. There's other elements that you need to talk about, and I think that video did a good job of exploring that. But yeah, to do that, you need to have enough background knowledge and education in, I don't know, film theory and literary theory and shit like that to actually do that justice and not just go, well, I hate it, which is still fine. You can still hate it, but that does
for all
sort
the
of
people
like,
who are like, "Oh, that's toxic AF," and I'm just like, okay. John's here. Hello, John.
Hello, Oki. Hello, Raf.
oh,
Hey, you were talking about Wuthering Heights. I've watched some videos about the talk about it and all, but one thing that struck me is it seems like that they're trying to turn it into a romance, but the book really like it was. They're trying to act like it's a great love story, but it was kind of like a horror story and with love. Like nothing worked out and just turmoil. But I like the book. I read it a long time ago, but it was a book that really influenced me. It stuck with me.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I think but that's like the interesting part is that they, with Wuthering Heights, there have always been people who claim that it is a love story, and there are people who claim it's a gothic story, and then and so forth. But so the idea of turning it just into the most wonderful love that is unfortunately doomed and so forth between Heathcliff and Catherine, those people have always been there. This new movie is just more brazen about ignoring everything else, plus doing a lot of other stuff at the same time. So I'm not saying it's a valid interpretation. I'm just saying it has always been there. So it doesn't come out of the blue. You know what I mean? It's like it's not new that someone claims that it is a love story. People have claimed that for a long time.
And there's one thing that stuck with me about that book that the images of the marsh, like the haunting imagery in it, was what really stuck with me. Just the scenes in of the marsh are stuck in my head. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's funny. My friend Jason is actually reading it at the moment with some of the people on the Discord
Yeah.
server he's on, and he's having a time with it. We'll just say
Who? Who's having a time? Sorry, I missed that.
no. My friend Jason is reading or either he is or was. I don't know if he's finished it yet, but he
Well,
is reading Wuthering Heights, which he generally kind of struggles with older books. So we'll see how he
he
reacts.
struggles with a lot of things, to put it mildly. Um, no, but Ori, yeah, that's the point. Like, it leaves out the second half. But what Broy's video shows, and that is something that I didn't know because I haven't paid attention to previous Wuthering Heights adaptations. That almost all of the older adaptations also dropped most of the stuff from the second half of the novel and focus on the relationship between Heathcliff and Catherine in the first part. So there's precedent for that. We have just like forgotten that because historicizing stuff is not what we do in postmodernism, right? So we don't do that anymore. But and that's something I found interesting in how that has always been there. We just kind of forgot about it. And now everyone claims that it's just the new adaptation. It's just that the new adaptation is particularly bad about it, I guess.
I mean, on Alicia's point, I'm kind of the same way. I just watch the booktubers I like, and the ones I don't, I just don't. I don't unsubscribe to them because I'm just lazy. I don't want to do that. But like if Wrath puts out a video, I'll probably watch that. I did unsubscribe from Matt's fantasy book reviews because like his takes were so bad. It's to a point where I just couldn't. I just couldn't handle it anymore. I'm just like, this is dumb. I'm not doing this.
I don't know. Like, I'm subscribed to him, but he doesn't show up in my recommendations as much. Maybe he has slowed down when it comes to making videos. I don't know, or just YouTube has decided that I don't need to watch his stuff. I appreciate Matt's approach. Like, I disagree with him most of the time, and I think because of the way he does stuff and he lacks any background knowledge or anything of the sort, he's incredibly uninformed about most things. But at least he's honest, and it feels very honest and real in a sense. Like, he manages to do authenticity very well, is what I'm saying, and I appreciate that. I'd rather have someone like that than someone who doesn't say anything and just uses a couple of catchphrases to pretend that they know what they're talking about. Like, your basic spoiler-free review of a book that goes like, well, the world building is excellent and this wonderful magic system. It also deals with themes of motherhood, and I'm like, so could you maybe be somewhat more explicit? And I'd rather have someone like Matt go like, well, I fucking hated this because I totally don't get what this is about, and like also why is the language so fucking stupid? Doesn't he know how to write a book in 2026 when it's written in like 1890 or whatever, right? Like, I appreciate that level of rawness, I think, because it stands out when it comes to a lot of fantasy book YouTube, I think, to me.
Yeah, I guess I like the more like analytical and critical type of content. So like yours, Raph, or Philip Chase, or Philip Chase to an extent. Because anyway, there's also some I like for the personality. Like I watch like Talking Story. I mean, not just because I'm friends with them, but I like John's personality. I like seeing him and Jacob go back and forth. But yeah, I generally like the more like critical stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's obviously YouTube provides for all kinds of things at the end of the day, and I personally appreciate people that stand out through whatever they're doing. I appreciate that. I may still disagree with them and not necessarily watch it all the time or whatever, but like at least they're doing something that stands out in a sense. And I can appreciate that and respect that without becoming a fan or anything. Matt's certainly had takes on books where I'm like, dude, it doesn't necessarily provide a lot of discourse material beyond showing us that you have no idea what you did there, which is if your goal is to present ignorance.
I see what you're saying, Raph, but like that again, I'm still beefing with that Conan review because it's just such a just put a giant sign on just wrapped around him and says I don't understand this.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like if he had like done any little bit of research or whatever, like to understand the context, it would be very different. But he doesn't do any of that. He just picks up a book and goes like, I'm gonna read this. And he reacts to he reacts to Conan the same way he reacts to Game of Thrones, the same way he would probably react to the Iliad. And that is ridiculous in its approach because you can't read the Iliad like you read Conan, like or whatever. Like it doesn't work that way because context does matter. But like he's the ultimate death of the author guy. Like he's the
You know what's funny? Alicia? I made a whole video talking about this whole subject. Why does booktubes even read? Why does fantasy booktubes need to read the same things? And my answer is, well, it's probably because it's pretty accessible to most people, and also marketing. Marketing's a big thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that is the case, Alicia. I think partly it's just like some books are just relatively popular and they will be popular to the sensitivities of most people right now. And so it works. Like, so obviously a lot of people will have similar takes. Like going like, wow, the world building in Lord of the Rings is amazing is not exactly a big take, but it's certainly something that a lot of people will have when they read Lord of the Rings for the first time. Go like, well, this is awesome. Some people will also claim that it's incredibly boring because all they do is walking. And, ideally you have seen Clerks 2 and remember that scene and enjoy that part. But like, yeah, if you want to have a sort of like nuanced opinion that goes beyond those kind of things, it takes a lot more effort. It takes a lot of more, context knowledge, and that takes more work. And that's not necessarily what people will put into YouTube videos, because YouTube videos are hard. We kind of forget that because we try to make it just look easy or whatever. But at the end of the day,
even the trees walked. Yeah, they do. So I don't know who this is. So yeah, no, the trees do indeed walk in Lord of the Rings, because J.R.R. Tolkien saw Macbeth is like, oh, I kind of wish the trees did walk, like the witches said, and then he wrote the whole then he wrote Treebeard, which I always thought was funny.
Yeah.
No, well, good luck with Book of the New Sun. I've bounced off of all the Gene Wolfe stuff that I've read, but I would like to try Book of the New Sun at some point. So there you go.
You're talking about all these people reading the same book. I know people like JCM Byrne aren't complaining. He Talk a Story John's getting ready to read his book. The authors.
Yeah, I actually need to get Joe so we can talk about because I have him on my channel sometimes to talk about the Hybrid Helix books. I might need to get him on to talk. I don't know if he's still here, but I would like.
He was here earlier, but that's cool. John's going to be reading Wistful Ascending. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think he'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm going to read Return of the Griffin relatively soon. Then I'm going to talk with Joe about it because, makes sense. And yes, Book of the New Sun, I think, is really good. I really enjoyed it. I think you will have a lot of fun with it, Max Garfield. Like, this is going to be your kind of book because you can pick up so many references and stuff in there. This is going to be your funny, your lucky day there. It's really good in that regard. But it's once again the kind of book that I feel a lot of people kind of bounce off of if they come from a specific sort of like reading paradigm, right? Like similarly to the Malazan Book of the Fallen, although obviously Stephen Erickson did not like Gene Wolfe, but that's a different thing, because it's a very open-ended book that allows for various different interpretations, has a ton of references that are never fully explained or anything of the sort. So if your goal is to sort of like have clear answers, the Book of the New Sun can be really frustrating, except of course when it comes to the actual plot, because that one gets spoiled in the first chapter and he goes like, well, this is going to be the whole thing, and then he spends like 4 books, and at the end of the last book goes like, well, if you didn't understand it, you should probably read it again because I'm going to write it again because I don't understand it either. And that's the end of Book of the New Sun, of the first 4 books of the New Sun before Earth of the New Sun comes out, and he ends with like, if you didn't get it, just read it again, maybe then it'll click. Which is, you got to have balls to do that as a writer, and also you have to actually be able to pull that off. And Gene Wolfe does have the literary skill to pull that off. And it's the kind of thing that rereading makes a lot of sense with the Book of the New Sun.
Yeah, what the fuck? Okay, we'll just ignore that until he says something off kilter. Why is always a fucking weirdo showing up on my stream? Anyway.
Yes, Stephen Erickson didn't really. So apparently they had like a clash at a conference, at a panel where they violently disagreed.
Oh, that's what he's talking about. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy talking about?
Yeah. So it's one of those really weird things where I don't know anything about it. They had a run-in at a conference, at some convention or conference, at a panel, and they disagreed about something very violently, and Stephen Erickson has later claimed that he doesn't remember it, and then obviously Cam Asselmont has to remind him of the thing, and then he goes, oh right, that thing. So there is something there that has nothing to do with
that
Gene Wolfe's writing, and it's literally about Stephen Erickson didn't like Gene Wolfe the person.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I have only I've only read The Land Across, which was just like, what the fuck? And then I read The Wizard Knight, which I was just like, yeah, it's fun, but I'm not really feeling it. But yeah, I've not really had fun experiences with Gene Wolfe. I know his books aren't meant to be like fun by any means, or well, maybe they're fun in a different way, but they're not like meant to be
Hey,
like light entertainment. Is my point.
look, the Wizard Knight has both a talking cat and a talking dog.
It does
I don't know
have
which is
that.
more
They do
fun.
have that, or well, the one book I read has that. So
Um, yeah, uh, there's certainly that.
oh, well, it's funny, Joe. We were just talking about you. We were talking about how I should get you on to talk about Shadow of Hyperion soon. And Raph's like, I'm going to be reading Return of the Griffin soon. So, yeah, we're just all over the place. Um, but yeah, Mac, I think you would like a Chronicle for Lieberwitz. I haven't read it myself, but I've heard very good things about it.
I DNF'd that a couple months ago. Mike's Book Reviews is talking about it, and it's really stupid why I DNF'd it, but he just was using the word indeed too much. And I mean, maybe that's kind of a dumb
Ooh,
thing.
Miller or Mike?
Huh? Mike's Book Reviews read it on a recommendation from, what's the guy's name? The guy that wrote, he read it and he liked it, but I couldn't get into it.
My friend Sam really liked it, which, that doesn't surprise me because he generally likes stuff that's like religious coded, which, nothing wrong with that. There is a part of me that's like, maybe I should give Sam Paradise Lost to see what he thinks of that at some point. Oh, yeah, it is Canticle. Sorry. Yeah, Canticle for Lieberwitz.
Yes, it's
You made a video about that, didn't you, Raph?
and Canticle for Leibowitz is an amazing book. Really, really good. Also, vultures that are very happy, apparently.
I was about to say, yeah, you made a whole video about it, didn't you?
Yeah, a while ago.
Yeah, no,
it's a really interesting book. Like, there's so much interesting stuff around that, and the author, and like, so obviously it's about the monastery of Saint Leibowitz and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of like Catholic influence in there, and the author was Catholic, by which I mean he converted to Catholicism because he was part of the U.S. Air Force, like bomb. He flew one of the bombers, or in one of the bombers that bombed the monastery of Monte Cassino during World War II, which is obviously the one that the original monastery of the Benedictine order, and he bombed that thing, and he felt so bad that he got really into Catholicism and converted to Catholicism. And Canticle for Leibowitz is sort of like something that came out of his experience in World War II and destruction, and obviously nuclear war, or the threat of nuclear war during the Cold War and all that kind of stuff, and his Catholicism. So it's a really interesting book in that regard, and it's also incredibly funny, and depressing. Like, there's a whole thing about euthanasia happening in the last book, in the last story. It's like three sort of like connected stories, and the last one has the kind of conversations that you don't necessarily get in sci-fi from that time, which is a Catholic priest trying to explain why euthanasia is absolutely a sin and cannot be done, even if someone is slowly dying of radiation poisoning. Which
shall be reading it soon. Actually, Alicia, funny you say that.
Which is the kind of conversation you don't necessarily get in sci-fi novels that often, but he does do it justice, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, no, I read. Yeah, my it's funny. My friend Sam's been reading a lot of like off the beaten path type of fantasy recently, and he's been reading the Alvin Maker books from Orson Scott Card.
There's a new one coming out next year or later this year, I think.
Oh yeah, I think that's true. Yes,
aren't they just Book of Mormon fan fiction?
I don't know, but it's my point being, I'm kind of hesitant to read them myself, even though one of my gripes about fantasy is there isn't enough Americana. Yeah, and it's not even the whole like homophobic thing. It's just like I don't really think that Orson Scott Card is that great of a writer. Honestly, I mean, there's that great twist in Ender's Game, but like, what else? You know, what else is it? Like, you know, what else do you got? You know, it just feels gimmicky. You know.
I don't know. I mean, Orson Scott, I haven't read him, and yes, the homophobia stuff is obviously the main point why I haven't read him. If I find a way to get his books without while making sure that he doesn't see a single cent of that, then I might actually go and at least read Ender's Game at some point, because you know it has had a huge impact, and I feel having read. If I want to talk about science fiction, I feel having read it once is sort of required, the same way that that I felt that having read Wheel of Time is important if I want to talk about epic fantasy, because it has had a huge impact. I mean, it's not so much about liking it, but knowing it. um I don't think that Elven Maker or Chronicles of Elven Maker fits the same sort of, like, has the same status. Although I do get the idea of the whole, like, American fantasy. Have you read have you read the Michael Chabon one, though?
No, I want to read that one. I would like to read that one.
It's called Summerland or something like that. It's about baseball and fairies, I guess. I think it's Summerland.
I mean, there is American Gods, but that's written by a British guy. That's not fair, But
well, I mean, there is definitely, and by which I mean very, very definitely, Little Big by John Crowley. That is very American.
You know what's funny about that? I actually saw recently that Gaiman was talking about that. He was sharing it on Twitter. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's cool. But yeah, I know Harold Bloom actually liked Little Big, from what I remember. And you'd be hard pressed to ask him to like anything remotely fantastical.
Speaking of Americana fantasy, well, how's your book coming along, Britton? You said you're editing it now?
Yeah, I've been editing it. I probably will do some more of it while I'm out in Florida. We'll see. But yeah, it's been kind of slowed down because some other things have come up. But yeah, it's going. It's going.
But you said it's colonial fantasy, right? What are some of the like little plot designs? Like, what else could you tell me about it?
I mean, the pitch of it is this guy gets in trouble with the religious authorities, and they're like, and one of them, who's kind of a acquaintance of his, goes, "Well, if you solve this problem for me in this small town, I'll let you go from this whole thing. You won't have to deal with the consequences of it." And he realizes he doesn't have much of a choice and goes along with it, and that's kind of where it goes from there. But yeah, it's kind of well, one of the inspirations, because I'm just really fascinated with Puritanism, so there's that. So I'm really fascinated with the kind of their costumes, the weird beliefs that they had, all that fun stuff, and just how much they like kind of defined America and like in its early days. Anyway, it's quite fascinating. At least I think so. Is that the one from Image? Because I think I've seen that. Isn't that the one about Lewis and Clark? Because I think I've seen that around. I just haven't picked it up. Yeah, I've thought about reading like DJ Butler's stuff as well, because I know a couple of my friends like him, and Witchy Eye, also Americana fantasy. So I'm like, it's...
Yeah, it's called Summerlands by Michael Chabon, and it's about baseball and fairies and the Summerlands and a 700-something-year-old werefox.
Oh, geez.
I think Paolo Bacigalupi also has a baseball novel, which I assume will be sci-fi or post-apocalyptic or something. I mean, that's what I remember. Let me check. I mean, generally amazing author Paolo Bacigalupi and so forth, but like I haven't read the. Yeah, Zombie Baseball Beatdown. Yeah, Zombie Baseball Beatdown. No idea.
I am going to read Red Moon this year from Kim Stanley Robinson, so I'm looking forward
Okay.
to that.
Which one? Red Mars or
Red Mars, yeah.
yeah?
Mac
I
asks
hope you
Raph.
like your anarchist fiction.
Mac asks if you've read the Three California trilogy from Kim Stanley Robinson.
Not yet, no. I still have to read a lot of Kim Stanley Robinson. I think the next one that I'm going to read is the Years of Rice and Salt. I already have that on my phone. I just need to get to it.
I think Mac actually read something recently from him that's more like historical fiction. I'm forgetting the name of it, but I think it's about like the Ice Age or something. You know, Ron, I actually own that book, Red Rabbit. I haven't read it yet. I would like to. I've heard I know Mike Mignola liked it, so.
Zombie Baseball Beatdown by Paolo Bacigalupi. That's the book, Thornall. I haven't read it. It seems to be YA, but I don't know.
I finished up Catcher in the Rye last week.
Oh yeah, what'd you think of that?
Well, I mean, I was really liking it a lot. I kind of resonate with Holden and kind of his black and white thinking, and this is just a goofball going through life, and maybe I thought like that when I was his age, but I did like it a lot, and his character. There's a lot of people I know that are like him. I didn't like the ending. When I got to the end, it just kind of there was this 2 pages. It just broke the fourth wall and said, "Hey," made like this profound statement about, "Hey, if you once you talk about something, then you end up liking some of the people that you talk about," and it just abruptly ended. I didn't like it, but I mean, overall, I liked the book. I did like it a lot. Give it 4 stars, maybe.
Yeah, I'm on and off with that book. I don't. It's one of those like I understand like why people like it more than I actually like it, because I read a bunch of classics when I was in middle school, early high school, and I mean there were some I liked more than others, of course. But yeah, no, that one was one of the ones I was kind of like, meh.
But I think it's the kind of book that you have to sort of read later because it does. You as a reader benefit from having lived experience to actually get to some of the things in those kind of books, right? Like a middle school is not when you have had enough life experience to understand what these kind of books are talking about. You can still disagree with them, but I think a lot of the classics benefit from being read or being reread at a later stage when you've been around a while and have had some more experiences, because let's face it, your experiences as a middle school kid are fairly limited.
Yeah, he's always saying that this person's a phony, but then he'd go and lie to someone and be a phony, and then he'd always he talked to this one person at the end, and so this person doesn't want to have an intelligent conversation with me, but he was asking the guy a bunch of stupid things, and these intellectuals never want to have an intelligent conversation, but he's just. I think I just kind of thought a lot of it.
Isn't that's so fucking Jordan Peterson coded though.
I don't know. Jordan Peterson's he's all right. I mean, I kind of like him.
I feel bad for him at this point. Like what with like being in a coma for like a half a year or whatever. All of these things, you can tell that the man is like struggling health wise in general. So I feel bad for him in that regard.
I like how he struggles and fights against some of the stuff in Canada. I mean, he has a right to not want to be re-educated and all this stuff, but not want to have some of the stuff in the education program that they are pushing through. So,
I mean, there's a conversation about like education that I generally struggle with when it comes to talking about education, because education differs so much from country to country and from generation to generation in a lot of ways, where it's so difficult to talk about that. Because you have, on the one hand, you have this idea that parents know best what's good for their children, but then again, you have people who have spent their entire life learning how to educate and do, research and shit. And shouldn't they know better because they're actual experts? And then it gets really difficult when it comes to these kind of things, because education is about learning stuff that you don't like, and you can still disagree with that stuff afterwards, but you need to be confronted with those kind of things. So education is a very difficult thing, and I'm saying this as someone who started a teaching degree and decided after 1 year that they'd rather just do mathematics and not math teaching, because teaching sounds difficult and frustrating because kids.
Fucking kids. Yeah, no, it's one of my it's funny. I actually thought about going into teaching myself briefly for a bit, but I'm like, I don't know if I'd be able to cope with the systematic issues with the American education system, because, oh my God, I hate the American education system.
My editor got in trouble because he got mad at his class because a couple people had using AI to write something. But he got in trouble with the kid because, what did he say? He said something like, oh God, I wish I remember. He said something to make the kid like, you're stupid if you're cheating. And then the kid went to the administration and they're like, he called me stupid. And Marquise was like, yeah, but you are stupid if you're cheating. But they came down on him because they acted like he singled the kid out, like, you're stupid because you cheated. And, he had to kind of apologize for saying, didn't mean to call you stupid, son, but it's not very smart for you to cheat.
Yes, don't use AI to help. Or, well, if you want to use AI to help you with writing, you should do it for like proofreading purposes.
I mean, you shouldn't do it, period. But on the other hand, I mean, that's like the
you shouldn't danger. You shouldn't have it write stuff for you. That's what I'm saying.
I agree, but here's the thing: like, if we start using, if we sort of like pile so much on your, especially with high school and so forth, like, if your grades in high school basically determine everything that happens to you afterwards, you have to. You sort of count on people trying to find any way possible to get that fucking grade, because it will fuck you up if you don't have that. And at the same time, you have that's where privilege comes in. You have people that have the money. They pay for their kids to have additional tutors and all these preparatory courses and all this shit to make sure that their kids will get the best grades, so they can move on to the next step in college or whatever, right? So anyone whose parents don't have the money to pay for all of those additional things to push their kids through high school with the highest grades possible is at a disadvantage, not because they're more, less smart or anything of the sorts, but because they lack the sort of additional financial and economic sort of resources that are necessary at this point. And if these people then decide to go for AI to sort of level the playing field, I understand why they're doing it. It's not leading to good education at the end of the day, but at this point, the education system is not about education. It's about applying a filter to sieve out people on the way to to the next stage of that system, right? So that's the problem there. The system is so fucked that I understand why people are using AI.
Anyway, I don't like the American education system. It's pretty dog shit, honestly. So
I've heard.
To say the least.
Yeah,
I'm not here to give a dissertation here, but it's quite ass. If you could let me say that.
Yeah, American education is basically indoctrination centers now.
See you. Have fun reading your book there. All right, I'm gonna get myself another beer and then I'll be back in a minute. So have fun, guys, and maybe the topic will have changed when I'm back.
Is the Romanian education system worse than it is in America?
When did you graduate? You just graduated from college, right?
Yes, I graduated high school in 2019.
I graduated from high school in 1995,
Oh man.
and I went to try to get into a bunch of colleges, and Virginia Tech was my college that I was like my college that I was supposed to be a shoe in to get into, and that one time that first year that I tried to get into it, um, there was the big thing with that football player. What was his name? The big Tech was like number one in football during that time, where their football season was really getting big, and their admissions was 3 times what it was the year before, and I didn't get in, so I had to go to Old Dominion University, and then eventually
I've heard of that. They have a good basketball team.
Yeah. Then let me give my dog some water real quick. Then I went to Radford University, but I didn't graduate.
Yeah, I went to Oklahoma City Community College for a while, and then I went to UCF, University of Central Oklahoma.
I tried to study creative writing at ODU, and then I got jaded, and some things happened. And then when I went to Radford University, I was like, well, I'd rather study music. So
yeah, he didn't see his dog. He was sitting behind him earlier.
Yeah, my dog is just drinking some water. We went on like a little 2-mile walk earlier. He's a good dog, off leash trained, pretty cool. Hi, Ada. I hope you got your washing machine fixed.
One of my friends, her dryer broke. Oh, we talk about the huge, books, how bad the American education system is. That we were talking about that earlier. And generative AI, all the fun topics of conversation. And I didn't go on an apoplectic tirade on how it actually isn't artificial intelligence. So, I think that's progress on my end. I was about to say there are 2 things that can set me off on tirades. It's Fight Club and the AI conversation. So there you go.
You mean the book Fight Club, Britton?
Oh, God,
I mean, I might want to read that.
It's a good book. It's just I'm really frustrated with the cultural impact it's had. And I'm like, it's not even the best take on that particular subject, in my opinion, anyway. So that's really where my kind of anger with it comes from.
Okay, let me ask you, like, what do you think that it's the subject is that the book's trying to talk about? Or
well, it kind of talked about consumerism and and masculinity and that kind of hidden kind of savagery that lives in everybody. But I think there's better books that have touched on that. I mean, I don't know about consumerism because I haven't read a lot of books about anti-consumerism, or well, maybe I have. I don't know, but I think books like Blood Meridian and Heart of Darkness are a lot better in terms of exploring that. And also, it's just because of the people who read it more or less than the book itself. It's more the people who it's just so annoying. It's what Steve Donahue calls dude bros. Basically taking over Fight Club, and it just gets really annoying reading people going like, "Oh man, it was such a profound take," and I'm like, "No, it's not the most profound thing I've ever read in my life. It's just it's more the cultural impact than the actual book. Like the actual book and the movie are good. It's just kind of annoying when people like oogle over it because I'm like, it's not the best."
Yeah, when I was read American Psycho, because I was thinking, well, I'll write satire, so let me pick up one that is supposed to be a good satire, but I liked it okay. but I didn't like how. I mean, I do like how he's always constantly talking about all these, highfalutin uh, brands, name brand this, name brand that, and I like how he used that to kind of uh, make everything look shallow, make the world look shallow. But I wasn't impressed with just how much of that was in the book as filler. He was just talking about this Da Vinci shirt, this blah 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 that, and it was just too much of that as filler. It was
Well,
like
I think that's part of the point of that book is that Patrick Bateman literally has nothing better to do with his time than to go on about all this frivolous nonsense. But I get what you mean. It can be laborious. I actually like American Psycho a lot more than Fight Club. I feel American Psycho takes itself less seriously than Fight Club.
Yeah, I do see that.
Because I'm just so annoyed with Fight Club at this point.
And I like how there was this point where you talk about a book and there's a tingle in the book, but I really like the irony piece on how the guy that Bateman killed, I forgot his name, the other billionaire, but he killed this guy and then he left his apartment a mess, but took his body and had all these other dead women in his apartment. And the guy's friends cleaned it all up. And it was like, while he thought that he was the one that murdered the women in his apartment. And, like he could have been the one that was the mass murderer. And all of the other billionaire's friends they took up for him and covered it up when it was really Bateman that did the killing. And that was kind of like, wow, it's, that all of the people that knew this guy thought that he could have been the murderer too and just covered it up.
Yeah, but I mean, Raph, I'm sure you have opinions on anti-consumerism. Have you read Fight Club at all?
I have not read Fight Club. I've watched the movie, but it's been a while.
Okay.
I feel like the thing with anti-consumerism is that it's easy to sort of do that performatively, and it doesn't actually fix anything. The same way that, you becoming vegan is a good thing, but it doesn't actually change the world. You know what I mean? It's a way to feel slightly better or even morally superior to other people without actually addressing the underlying systemic issues. And that's sort of like where anti-consumerism can sort of like fall very quickly, right? Because it's like, you basically say like people that are like heavily consuming, buying too much and all of that kind of stuff, right? You blame these people and tell them that they are morally weak or whatever and bad people for doing that. And that leaves out the whole idea that, depending on your specific and social circumstances, you may just not have that much of a choice. It's the same way that blaming people for reading cozy fantasy, I feel is bad, because I'm certainly someone who is often feeling, frustrated with people just reading cozy fantasy. It's not for me, but I'm like, yeah, well, I'm an angry person. I feel I have the capacity to be angry, politically angry at the world all the time. I can do that. But there are people who are so marginalized that I totally get that, like, maybe they don't want to confront the whole frustrating stuff when they're at home. They might just want something, cozy instead. And I feel that systemic sort of like thing kind of is left alone when it comes to a lot of this specific sort of like pop anti-consumerism in a lot of ways.
It's also, I think that Palahniuk has written better than Fight Club. I think books like Rant and Lullaby are far better than Fight Club, in my opinion.
Also, isn't Fight Club mostly about like toxic masculinity and stuff at the end of the day?
Yeah. Yes, it is. I'm just saying I think there have been better books on that topic and better films about that topic than
we need more toxic masculinity in the world today.
Yeah,
No, we don't.
Knock back some. We could use a little bit more of it.
Yeah, no.
Thornall, you don't need a guy to change the light bulb. You know how economists change the light bulb. Well, if the market needs a new light bulb, it will provide a new light bulb. That's how capitalism works. You don't need a guy for that. It's the invisible hand that will screw in your new light bulb. But that's the thing, right? Like Prince of Thorns is in a lot of ways. There's this. I always share that essay. It's about how really bad Prince of Thorns is now. It's basically incel gamer fiction in a lot of ways, and it's a really good one. It talks about different aspects: the misogyny, the racism, the magical Negro trope, all of those wonderful things that are all in Prince of Thorns. It's a really good
The
essay. I
magical
highly recommend
Negro.
it. Like, don't you know that trope?
Oh yeah. No, I mean, yeah, I've read Stephen King. Yeah, I know the trope.
Yeah, that's the point. And yeah, it shows up in Prince of Thorns as well, among other things that are in Prince of Thorns that are just not very good.
I don't really want to read Prince of Thorns because
No, you don't have to.
I've heard yeah, I had a friend describe it to me and I'm like, that sounds stupid. Like he literally pulls the secret brother trope, and I'm just like, okay, the only time that worked was in Gravity Falls. Aside from that, that is a stupid trope. I hate that. I don't like that trope. That's what I'm saying.
Which trope?
The secret brother trope, where it's like, oh, I was your brother the whole time. I hate that. I hate that. The only time that worked was in Gravity Falls and Star Wars, and that's it. I'm like, I'm not. No. Rest of the time, it's really contrived.
I think it works really well in. It works really well in is it called Broken Empire, whatever? Like in the Prince of Thorns, King of Thorns, Emperor of Thorns trilogy, it works really well. In that, while because it is a first-person narrative written by York, right? Like, it's you as the reader figure this out immediately. It doesn't take a long time to realize that there is the secret brother thing going on. You understand that very quickly. It just takes for fucking ever until the character understands it. So you have this whole like, the narrator is clearly very dumb thing that is going on. And I think it works in that regard. Also, because of the way it is set up, I think, and that's like the frustrating thing with Mark Lawrence, or at least that trilogy. I haven't read anything else by him yet. I might do that in the future, but like, he does have some really good ambitious ideas, and then he fails in execution. He massively fails. He's just not good enough a writer to actually pull that thing off, and he gets sidetracked by the need to be edgy and all this other stuff, and that's why the trilogy at the end of the day fails. It's like, the
I also had a
underlying
weird
idea
encounter
is
with
good.
Mark Lawrence once on Facebook, which yeah, that kind of also soured me on his work.
I don't know. He's definitely the kind of person that loves to argue online in ways that don't necessarily are flattering to him. Let's put it that way. Like, I have never engaged with him, but there are that whole like thing on like world building and M. John Harrison and Mark Lawrence in the comments fighting with, I keep forgetting who it was, and it's like, it's never good if you are a public figure that
I mean, you mean when R. Scott Baker and
oh yeah, I think Mark Lawrence tied into that as well. R. Scott Baker did that definitely, and Mark
with
Lawrence has
about
done.
the M. John Harrison world building ideas.
Yeah, and I've seen Mark Lawrence show up in YouTube video comments in the past, and he's the kind of person that is just too online for his own good, I think. And I mean, R. Scott Baker has just left the internet, so I think that's good and healthy for him. Mark Lawrence is still very much online, and
Yeah, I was trying to tell him how I'm like, oh yeah, I know you take care of your like disabled daughter. I kind of I'm kind of moved by that because I have autism, and he was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. You need a better intro than that. I remember he said that. I'm just like, what? And he's like, oh, I'm kind of tipsy, sorry. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And yeah, we never talked again. It kind of like, yeah, he seems kind of like an asshole, honestly. But I don't know him, so I could be wrong on that. And if you like Mark Lawrence, that's fine. I'm not saying don't like him. I'm saying he's kind of weird, honestly.
like
Maybe, I mean, maybe he was just thinking maybe you were just trying to bring that up as, oh, victim thing. So many people are throw that up like nowadays in that aspect. So maybe he was thinking you were bringing it up like that and just didn't want to discuss it. Maybe he wasn't.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I just kind of.
I don't think you can compare Evil Dead and Prince of Thorns because I don't think it like and that's partly definitely a subjective thing. The humor in Evil Dead works. It's edgy, but it's funny and it works. And I don't think the edginess in I think the edginess in Prince of Thorns takes itself too seriously to actually do that, right? Like the level of slapstick that you get in Evil Dead is just better. So and it may just be that Mark Lawrence at the time of writing was just too young and trying too hard. I think if I had to describe my problems with my overall problem with the Broken Empire trilogy is Mark Lawrence is trying too hard for his own good in that trilogy, and that's bad. Like that ruins a lot of stuff that is good because yeah, he's too self important about it, too smug.
I've always been a bit more into werewolves than vampires. I think vampires are kind of played out, honestly. I think vampires scary again. Now, werewolves, I will read about werewolves all day or watch movies about them. But that's what you're going to do. Good luck with Spiffbo, by the way, Ida. I have friends, like Dr. Philip Chase, who've judged on it and had a good time. So, I mean,
Ida, there might be a vampire, maybe, in Boy with Accidental Dinosaur. He's also a dinosaur rodeo rider, so there's that. Um, not a wizard, though.
What's the name of your book, Ida, if you don't mind putting it in the chat?
yeah, she was telling me about it a while back. I think she actually gave me a link to it on Twitter. I just forgot to add it on my ebook. So I believe it or not, I do read ebooks from time to time. When BPRD, I don't know. I have a bunch of other comics I'm hoping to read before I get around to BPRD. But when I do get to BPRD, I'll let you know, Tharnell. But no, anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Mark Lawrence. Yeah, he just seems kind of, I don't know. He insists upon himself, if you will.
I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why people are that way, and it can be if you something I've noticed that people who are struggling in some way, for example, with if you have a disability, if you have a or if you deal with someone with disability in your life or whatever, like you are often not necessarily marginalized as such, but you have a harder time sort of like being heard because you are busy with all kinds of other stuff that takes up energy and things, right? Like and attention and so forth. You tend to overcompensate by being louder, being more insistent, sort of like to compensate for the fact that you don't necessarily always can give 100% because you are busy with other shit. The same way that, surprisingly, a lot of like very successful singers, in particular frontmen of bands in general, are very very small. Turns out that the way that smaller people, shorter people tend to need to sort of like be more forceful in establishing their personality works really well when it comes to being on a stage because you already have trained that in a lot of ways, right? So I feel that there is that tendency for people that have these kind of struggles to come across as more forceful, sometimes more intense in a way. So that is something I've noticed in my own surroundings with knowing a lot of people that have different forms of disabilities and shit like that.
I think Raph would like Hellboy. I think he'd like the pulpiness anyway, how it kind of plays with mythology. I don't know. I mean, if you asked me, I think you would like stuff like 2000 AD or Transmetropolitan.
Yeah, of
Like,
course.
I think you'd like that because it's very like angry and
Yeah,
political.
yeah. No doubt about it. I would definitely love to read Transmetropolitan. I'm aware of that, and 2000 AD stuff. Yes, of course. Same with Hellboy and the pulpiness of that fantasy. So the thing with fantasy and occultism, I think, is like, but if you want to have like interesting occultism, you kind of have to do this in what you might call like a historical fantasy, something set in our world. Because coming up with like full on occultism in a fantasy world takes a lot of work. The same way that coming up with like sort of like believable religions in a fantasy world is really difficult. That being said, there's a lot of occultism going on in John Crowley's Little Big, because of course there is. There's a lot of tarot stuff. There's Giordano Bruno Mind Palace stuff going on. There's some Rosicrucian shit going on. There's a lot of like references to Joachim of Fiore. So there's stuff like that in there, and I do really appreciate that. I do obviously really, really love Foucault's Pendulum by Umberto Eco, which is just wall to wall weird occultist bullshit the entire fucking time, which makes me very, very happy. And there is
You
some
may like
occultism.
Hellboy then. In that case,
Yeah,
it also has weird
of course.
occult bullshit.
Yeah, of course.
Like Rasputin is literally a villain. I mean,
Yeah, of course. Neil Stephenson's Baroque cycle does have some of that stuff because it focuses on Isaac Newton and his friends' alchemy stuff and things like that. So no, I like my occultism and fantasy, but it turns out that it's mostly in more historical fiction, and it is very big in like the Illuminatus trilogy as well, right? Obviously, because
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like I don't know. It's like. Well, I did add your Ida. I did add your books on my Goodreads. So if you wanna, so there you go. But I remember she sent me something. We were talking about like AI or something. She's like, "Oh, you want to read my book?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, sure. You can send it to me." And I didn't get around to putting it on the e-reader that I have. So yeah, sorry about that, Ida. I didn't get around to it.
Hey, that artificial structure, formerly known as the moon, that sounds like an interesting book, because I mean I'm big into like Y-Files, the conspiracy theory stuff. Y-Files is one of my favorite YouTube channels, and the moon seems to be like it's hollow. So I bet you that's a good book. I'm gonna check it out.
I have read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, to talk about artificial structures on the moon that also allow you to just throw rocks at Earth.
Yeah. Well, Thornell, if you like occultism with a historical fiction, you would definitely enjoy Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, because that book is like all about that. So there you go. Ooh.
Yeah, as I said, like Foucault's Pendulum definitely has a lot of occultism stuff in it. The Baroque cycle by Neil Stephenson does have some of that in there. Because of that, obviously, also the Cryptonomicon does, because they're in the same sort of like timeline, has some of these elements in there.
I've always wanted to read Stevenson, but he always seems like that guy who like runs around like, "Ooh, look at all these, edgy, weird ideas. Isn't that cool?" And you're just like, "Well, okay, like, what's the story? Could you tell me that?" He's like, "Oh, but look at all these ideas, wow, look how."
Neil Stephenson definitely is someone who really enjoys cool ideas. Like Neil Stephenson, it's one of the reasons why I love Neil Stephenson, even though he's somewhat problematic from time to time, and I definitely disagree with his politics. But like, Neil Stephenson is a nerd. Neil Stephenson gets really, really obsessed with something that he finds really fascinating, and really wants to tell you all about the thing that he just got really into and hyper focused on.
Hey, Raymond, how you doing?
for like a long time, and then he tries to come up with a plot around the thing that he got fascinated with. So he has some way of telling you why this thing is really awesome, and sometimes that works really well, and sometimes it doesn't. I think Snow Crash works really well, even though it's mostly Neil Stephenson wanting to tell you all about his research into Sumerian language and mythology, which, yeah, I take it. Like, after reading Snow Crash, I did actually take one semester of Sumerian language at my university because, of course, right? It's really good. And the Baroque cycle, I think, works very well in that regard because there's a lot of like action happening, and the plots kind of come together in a good and satisfying way. So I feel like the Baroque cycle, which covers roughly the time from like 1650 to 1710, 15, something like that. So it starts during the English Civil War and the decapitation of King Charles I, which, sets a precedent that we might want to keep in mind from time to time. There are ways of dealing with kings that are called Charles. Anyway, my point is, it starts with that and looks at sort of like the British, the Restoration, the development of the Royal Society, and the whole like beginnings of like the natural sciences in England in that time, and it ties that into the beginning of like the modern financial system and economic system. But it also has pirates, lots of pirates, and the Siege of Vienna, and cool shit that's happening all over the place. Plus,
what, does like John Milton show up in the story?
John Milton as a character, not, but people talk about John Milton. Characters that have been hung around with John Milton definitely show up. But John Locke shows up, and Isaac Newton shows up, and Leibniz shows up, and
I would like to read the Baroque cycle at some point. Sounds like something I would like, but
it's really well researched, and it's really entertaining in a lot of ways, and does cool stuff. Louis XIV shows up, and other stuff. No, it's a really good book. If you're interested in, like that part of like the Enlightenment, early Enlightenment England, it's really good.
Oh yeah, cheers, Raph. I'm
Cheers,
using
man.
a cup today, but cheers.
Cheers.
I'm trying to find something here. Yeah, no, I've thought about reading that, and his famous one. I just saw it earlier. Let me hold on. And of course, it's just I hate Goodreads sometimes. Cryptonomicon, that's another thing he did. Snow Crash. I would like to at least read Snow Crash at some point. At
It's
least
fun.
have an opinion on it.
Look, it's got a main character that's called hero protagonist.
Even though I'm not really a big fan of cyberpunk, but we won't talk about that too much. We won't worry about that.
I agree, but I took one semester a course in philosophy where we just read the monadology for like one semester. So I've spent more time with Leibniz than most people, I guess. A really interesting thinker in a lot of ways. Also worked on, which is why Stevenson is interested in him, worked on creating like a machine readable language and started to work on proto computer stuff. So cool guy, Leibniz.
I have to read this. I might have to read the Baroque cycle at some point. We'll see. But sometimes I kind of feel it's that kind of like Warren Ellis thing, except Warren Ellis can actually tell a good story. But we'll see. I haven't read them yet, so I could be wrong.
See, the problem with Snow Crash is that Snow Crash is supposed to be a satire, but everyone, like not everyone, but like the people who make way too much money read Snow Crash and go like, clearly that's what we need, and that's why they want to start charter cities and build the metaverse. When it's very clear that that is not exactly a good thing to do. But yeah, hero protagonist steals a motorbike and rides down the highway with like two
Always getting
samurai
mixed up
swords.
with Neuromancer though, for whatever reason.
Because those are the two books that everyone brings up when they're talking about cyberpunk.
It's probably why, yes.
But if you want to read like another cyberpunk novel that is really, really good, then that is Hardwired by Walter John Williams, which is probably the most heavy metal novel written in the 80s. It's just really good and funny and totally over the top. And angry at the elites and all the good stuff that you require from cyberpunk.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read it, so I don't know. I haven't read them, so I don't know. I haven't read either of them. I would like to read Neuromancer at least. Again, I'm not really a big fan of cyberpunk, but I feel like I need to read it, so I have an opinion on it. I'd feel like a bad sci-fi fan if I didn't read it. So there you go.
I think like Walter John Williams really good. I personally think that William Gibson, for me, is the one that I appreciate the most when it comes to like how his work changed over the years. And like you look at, the Sprawl trilogy, and then you look at the Bridge trilogy, and like the difference between those two, and then you look at the Big End trilogy from the early 2000s, and like what he does there is like William Gibson is the most culturally and socially aware of these authors, I think. Walter John Williams is the coolest, and as a nerd who gets hyper fixated on all kinds of weird shit, Neil Stevens is just like the author for me, right? Like I'm subscribed to his Substack, and he's currently posting these essays that are sort of like stuff he researched while he was working for Blue Origin, because yes, he worked for Blue Origin for Blue Origin for Jeff Bezos' space thing in the early 2000s, and it's all about like different ways that whips reach cross the sound barrier and stuff like that, and then how you could potentially use those kind of things to propel stuff into space and shit like that. And I just love that like excitement for nerd shit. That is something that Neil Stevenson is just really good at. It's like I like his hyperfixation on nerd shit.
Yeah, I like.
Yeah,
I don't know if Philip K. Dick is technically a cyberpunk author. I don't don't consider him one, but I like his stuff. So I guess that counts. I don't know. But he is of a whole different thing. So.
I mean, he's too early to be cyberpunk, but like without like the stuff that he does, I don't think cyberpunk as a subgenre could have sort of like become the thing it became. So he's clearly influential, but he's sort of like proto-cyberpunk, I would argue.
I've also heard the Stars My Destination is kind of a proto-cyberpunk in a way.
Neil Stevens and Nicola Griffith are friends because they are in the same dojo. They work out in the same dojo. That's why Nicola Griffith knows Neil Stevenson. So yeah, they're friends because they live in the same area and share the same dojo. So yeah. And I can totally see how someone like Neil Stevenson would get like really into the same sort of like historical fiction stuff, and Nicola Griffith's approach to researching 6th century England. That is exactly the kind of thing that Neil Stevenson loves to get into, right? But yeah, they know each other from the same from sharing a dojo.
I don't know too much about Neil Stevenson, but he seems to be too cozy with the elites for me to want to read him. I mean, Bill Gates loves one of his books that's, I think, talking about some crazy stuff that should be satire, but maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, I think there's like two things there. It's like on the one hand, as a writer, you can't really you have no say over who will love your books or not. Like that's like one thing. So
I think I saw Peter Thiel also likes uh, damn it.
they all love Neil. They all love
Yeah.
Snow Crash. That's the thing.
That's why I don't like it. I mean, but I'm probably wrong for being like that.
The thing is,
They
like,
probably
but
misread
I
it somewhere
agree.
down the line. It's okay.
I mean, that's the thing is like he definitely has no problem to hang out with people like Bill Gates, or I said like he worked for Blue Origins. Like you can be sure that Jeff Bezos directly texted Neil Stephenson and said like, "Hey, do you like to work for my rocket company?" That's a thing because all of these nerds read Neil Stephenson, and he's a libertarian of the more like I guess probably more of the anarcho-capitalist side of things. So he's definitely not a racist. Like, but I'm fairly confident to go like he's not one of those right-wing weirdo libertarians, but he does believe in a lot of like libertarian sort of like ideas in a lot of ways. So I think because of that he's associated with, or is easy to associate with by people that are tech billionaires in a way that someone like William Gibson is not, because William Gibson seems not to be a big fan of people that make a lot of money. Doesn't seem to be his thing. Whereas Neil Stephenson definitely has a fascination with tech billionaires that just like do shit. He loves that stuff. So there's a Randian Ayn Rand kind of strand in Neil Stephenson's writing that is definitely problematic to me at least.
Conservative libertarians are all right by me. I like a lot of them. Like Glenn Beck, he's a conservative libertarian. I really respect him.
Wait, who?
Glenn Beck.
Oh.
Well, to be fair, Joe, the trains weren't actually that good under Mussolini. It's one of those myths. The same way that like Hitler built the autobahn is actually not exactly true. There are statistics that show that like the trains didn't actually run better under Mussolini than they did afterwards. So there's that. But like, no, I know what you mean. Like, I think what is difficult with Neil Stephenson in that regard is that he clearly has ideas or espouses ideas in some of his novels that are still very much compatible with the ideas of these terrible people. In particular, if you read Termination Shock, right? Termination Shock, the book about climate change, where the whole thing basically goes, well, clearly we can't solve climate change, or we can't mitigate climate change issues because of, bureaucracy and diplomacy is fucked. So what we need is a rich tech billionaire who just decides to do something about it, and without talking to anyone else, just shoots fucking sulfur acid and whatever into the atmosphere to geoengineer stuff around that, because that's the only way it works. And that's certainly like a thing you can think about, but it's the kind of thing that appeals to your Elon Musks or Jeff Bezos in a way that, say, the things that Kim Stanley Robinson talks about in Ministry for the Future does not appeal to it. That is, well, clearly what we need is an international effort that makes sure that, like, people in the global south are actually participating in this and are involved and included and have a say and so forth. Like, Neil Stephenson, I think, is sort of like a cynic when it comes to the idea of cooperation, and assumes that the only way you can actually do stuff is by being, a strong individual who just does shit. Because in that regard, I think he never fully grew up, I guess. I don't know. So I understand why he is popular with that audience in a way that goes beyond saying, well, you can't blame him for stupid people reading and loving his books. No, you can't blame him for that, but he has continued to write books that stupid people love. And after the 10th, you might wonder why that is the case, right? So that's sort of like where I'm with Neil Stephenson.
You were talking
he also jumps into like every dumb thing, like fucking crypto and the metaverse and everything. He's still involved in like a blockchain-based metaverse virtual reality thing. That's the kind of stuff he gets into these days. And I want my cyberpunk authors to be slightly more aware of like where technology is going. You know what I mean?
We're talking about like the billionaires and elites and climate control. I think that really climate control is really more about energy control. And I mean, even now, some of the elites like Bill Gates are backing down on some of it because, hey, these AI data centers are energy hogs. And so, hey, we can have a couple more plants here now, and we need it. We need more energy. But I mean, I think it's more about like, here's climate change. Oh, we got to save the planet, but hey, you need to pay more for your electricity and you need to cut down on your stuff. But we're just going to have this AI data center over here and hog and use all the energy we can in order to do what we need to do. You have to be the one, little guy. You have that light bulb that's lesson.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the way that like data centers are used right now is ridiculous. And then you talk about like someone like Elon Musk who's doing those fucking things in Tennessee, where he just like has them like outside of like obviously majority black neighborhoods and runs these like portable gas generators that absolutely poison the air and everything because, why not? Yeah, it's fucked up, is what it is. And all of that for fucking generative AI that doesn't do anything and is bad. So yeah, yeah. I'm not going to defend any of that.
Have a great weekend, Joe. But AI is going to take a bunch of jobs, Raph, a bunch of white-collar jobs. Promise you. You're not going to need any more accountants. You're not going to need any more data analysts. They'll be all AI. So many white-collar jobs are going to be taken away from AI by AI.
I mean, that's the other thing, the idea that like data centers provide jobs, which is bullshit. Data centers might provide jobs, temporary jobs for like construction for a moment, but after that, you don't need more than like 2 or 3 people to run a data center. Like you need security on staff, and that's it. And you need like 1 or 2 technicians, and those are not going to be the blue collar jobs that you need in those places. And then it comes to like you need water to run those things, right? You need water to cool those things, and someone thought that like building those things in fucking Arizona is a good idea, right? Like. Yeah. I'm not an expert on geography, but Phoenix, Arizona is not in a swamp, is it?
Old folks, they don't need that much water. They take about 1 or 2 baths a week.
Yeah. But that's so frustrating about the whole thing. It's like, yeah, we'll build out data centers in, I don't know, Abilene in Texas, and we'll build them in fucking Arizona where we have no water anyway. It's like let's build water cooled data centers there. That's what we need to do because it will create jobs. This bubble can't burst quickly enough.
Yeah, but I think the bubble is going to burst, but it's just going to make some of the AI companies rise above the rest. But all the money they've been pouring into for the resources, I mean, they're like the company's worth this many billions of dollars, but people are pouring in all this money into the company. Something's going to happen. I mean, they know that they're going to get some returns sooner or later. Some people are going to get some big returns.
I don't know if they're going to get. It's still like they still haven't found a business model, right? That's the problem. That they still haven't found a business model for generative AI. They're still hoping that they'll reach that magical thing that suddenly will actually turn this into money. And if that doesn't happen, then it'll just collapse. And
okay, here's what's going to turn it into money. When they can save money by firing people, that's when they're going to make their money.
Yeah.
So that's
sort of. But like right now, and that's sort of like stuff that came out recently, like for either Claude, like either Anthropic or OpenAI, one of those two is like for every dollar they take, for every dollar they make by people buying a subscription to use their model, for every dollar they have to spend $3 of running the model. So they're losing $2 for every dollar they make. That is, even if, other economies, other people are sort of saving money by firing people and using that AI. At this point, AI is just not sustainable because they are not charging enough to actually even just break even. and that's something they need to solve at some point. And yes, it's going to get somewhat cheaper because of technology and shit like that. But like, it's a very interesting bet what will run out first.
Okay, now here's something to think about though. Here's why I think they're also making money, because if you got AI, why does Oracle make all this money by collecting people's data? These phones, their mics are on, their cameras are on, they're watching every single thing they do. They're watching our eye movements as we look at content. All this data, and the AI is going to show these people how to manipulate and control us using all the data that they've collected from us, watching us do and say this online. And they'll just sell stuff to us and know how to manipulate us by the data and the AI processing, crunching the data. I mean, if you are a machine learning AI that's really smart, you can correlate this strange event over here with this one over here. Like, it might end up to be somehow that people that like Labrador retrievers might like chocolate milk better, or something really strange. If you're able to crunch that much information like an AI can, and they can use those little bitty teeny things to guide and manipulate and control us.
Yes and no. Quickly, yes, Max Garfield, I have read the Water.
Is that the one he tied with The City in the City for the Hugo?
Could be. The Water Knife, incredibly good book. It's a very, very prescient book in a lot of ways. It's about, it's set in both Las Vegas and Phoenix, Arizona. And it's about water scarcity and water rights, and the Colorado having less and less water every year, and those kind of things. It's a really, really good book. It's a very depressing book at the same time. And after I finished it, I went and did in fact read Cadillac Desert by Mark Reisner, which is mentioned way too many times in this book. And that was a fucking depressing read. Like, if you want to really ruin your day, read Cadillac Desert by Mark Reisner. It's an incredibly important book. And especially if you have like a newer edition, you get like, this is the book from like 1981 or 2 when it first came out. Then there's like his forward to the 10th anniversary and the forward to the 20th anniversary. And every time it's like, I told you this is going to go really, really poorly, and you haven't done anything. And then the next one is like, remember when I told you how shit was bad, like after 10 years? Shit's got worse. It's even worse now. It's an impressive book. And The Water Knife is really, really good. It's highly recommend reading it. Yes.
Let me actually see. Hold on real quick, because it's gonna bug me until I figure it out.
The thing though with what you said with Oracle is like, Oracle is right now in a very, very delicate financial situation. Their credit rating has been lowered at this point because they are very much over leveraged. So if any of these things
I didn't see.
Are going to tumble, if any of these blocks are going to tumble, Oracle is going to go down real hard, which will have all kinds of like knock-on effects. What with the Ellison family being invested in Paramount and Skydance, obviously trying to take over Warner Brothers, having just taken over part of TikTok. That's going to go really well.
It'll go really well for him because he's got a
data it's the wind-up girl.
Right. That's TikTok. Sorry, TikTok can look at all kinds of stuff at us. He'll get all that information, all the camera stuff, all the mic stuff. Watch how we're looking and smiling when we look at the content. They're going to be able to figure out how to manipulate us like a fiddle with all that data and big-time AI.
Yes and no. Once again, it's like there are ways of monetizing a lot of the collected data. Like, obviously, Google is really good at this. With AI, it doesn't really work that well yet. With the generative AI, like, once again, there is a lot of stuff that you can do with different forms of large language models and deep learning networks. There's a lot of like really good stuff and interesting stuff you can do with it. The problem is that like these maximal things that are doing with those multimodal neural networks right now with Chat GPT, well, GPT in general, and Claude, and all those models, those don't actually go anywhere. What will be a thing is like, smaller models that are tied and trained for a very specific purpose. That kind of stuff can have like a future, but that's not what those models, what those companies are built on, because they are obviously, tied into the larger venture capital funded form of tech innovation right now, and that is like dangerous at this point. And I feel like one of the big sort of like misjudgments that have happened there is that while OpenAI and Anthropic, while those companies seem to be software companies and thus the perfect thing for VC funding, very, very low costs. Software companies are famously really good to invest in because you pay like 10 engineers in San Francisco, and everything else is going to be handled by outsourced people somewhere in the Philippines, basically, which is really good when it comes to like investment for VC. OpenAI, like those AI companies, are not that, because they suddenly do in fact have insanely high costs that are tied onto that, which is all those fucking data centers they need to actually train that shit. So that model of VC funded software innovation that has been what Silicon Valley has been working on for the last 25 years basically doesn't actually apply, but they're trying to do the same thing, and that's why it is so precarious. Maybe they will surprisingly discover super intelligence next week, and then we're all fucked. But I don't think that's going to happen. So there is a very, very serious chance that the whole thing will collapse relatively soon.
They've already got super intelligence. Sorry to interrupt, but I think they've already got it. But why roll it out? If you take a quantum computing and hook it up to some AI software, who knows what they'll be able to do? Crazy stuff. But I think it's already there. I do. And I guess what do you call super intelligence would be that you have an AI that not only can perform and do all these things, but can do it on its own, right? Is that what you mean? Like make decisions on what to do and what to look at and what to make decisions on what to do to make a goal happen.
Yes, and that's also can, in theory, also create an even better super intelligence and sort of like improve itself. That's like the fear, right? Like you create an AI that is general intelligence, that can do all of these things, but it can also make a better general intelligence, and that one can obviously improve itself and so forth. And because software runs faster than like human generations, it will evolve and become this machine god, basically. It's ridiculous. It doesn't happen. It's not going to happen anytime soon.
Well, I mean, they at least have the fear that it's going to happen because they put all these AI things in a sandbox where it's not connected to anything on the internet, so it can't escape. So they're studying all these things to where we got total control on you. You can't go on the internet and do unless we let you, and you can't download or upload anything on it. So they're really tightly controlling it. Like scared that it can get out.
No, I don't think they have anything of that sort, because they don't know. You can't do that with the specific technologies they're having right now. You would have to do something very different, and we don't know actually what to do there. Anyway, Ori, what's the book on Joanna Russ? I'd be really interested in that. Her
I would like to read The Female Man from her after my friends Carlson Yolanda spoke so highly about it.
If you want to read a really funny book by Joanna Russ, it's How to Suppress Women's Writing. Really good. Oh my man, is she an angry person in that book? Justifiably so. Just to be clear, she's very much right there. But it's an amazing book. But yeah, Joanna Russ, really, unfortunately, underappreciated author.
Yeah, I haven't read anything from Joanna Russ. My friends Carlson Yolanda really liked her book, The Female Man. Thought about picking that one up.
Yeah, that's definitely a classic in that regard.
That's kind of a new wave book, isn't it?
Huh? What did you say?
That's kind of a new wave book, isn't it?
I think it's too old for new wave. Like the female man is much older than you might think. It's like early 60s, I think. It's really old.
Well, guys, I think I'm gonna probably head off here.
All right, it was
Yeah.
fun seeing you, John.
See ya, man.
See y'all later.
See ya.
Let's see.
Yeah, there's so many damn books, man. I would really like to read the Ada Palmer books. I'm blanking on what it's called.
Oh no, it's from 1975. According to Google, which I mistrust, it also gives me the German title, which is Der Planet der Frauen, which means the planet of women.
The Planet of Women.
Which is like yeah, isn't that really, really changing the meaning of the female man? Like, that's a very different thing you're saying there.
The first book's called To Light the Lightning. I'm forgetting what the series is called.
Terra
Ignota. That's it.
Yes. Really good books. All of them.
That's another one I'd like to try. I don't know if I'll be able to get to it this year, but I would like to at least, read stuff.
So the thing is difficult to read, or because it is different from a lot of other stuff. It's first-person narration that breaks the fourth wall a bunch of times, that jumps around in different ways. It is a very thick text. It has a lot of references and stuff, and yeah.
Though I am hoping to read some Adrian Tchaikovsky this year, so there's that. And also I think his name's T.R. Napper. He wrote The Eschler Man, which my friend Livia was telling me all about. And also I'm hoping to read Snail on the Slope, which is also a Livia recommendation from the Strugatsky brothers. So I'll be busy.
Yeah. The pronoun thing in in Terra Ignota is certainly interesting. I personally didn't struggle too much with it, but my former flatmate read To Like the Lightning before I read it, and he really struggled with the whole pronoun gender thing and stuff. But yeah, really good series.
Yeah, I've only read damn it. I keep blanking on names today for some reason. It's the one that Stalker is based off of, Roadside
Picnic. Yeah.
It's a pretty good book, but I actually think it's one of those rare things. I actually think the movie's better than the book.
I think in a lot of ways, like something with the Strugatsky brothers, definitely similar with like Stanislav Lem. I think what is interesting is that if you grew up and are socialized by reading Anglo-American science fiction, you'll struggle with like the ways of storytelling from people like Lem or the Strugatskys in a lot of ways, because their approach to like what is said and what is not said and so forth. There's a cultural sort of like gap there that is really hard to bridge, and that requires sort of like a willingness to accept that difference, I think. The thing that happens with a translated fiction, as they call it.
You're talking about Stalker? Because Stalker is an excellent film, though it's one you kind of have to turn everything off and like pay attention to. It's not one to watch casually.
So how long are you planning on going, Britton?
I don't know. I mean, I might go for a little while longer and then get off because I'm kind of my energy's kind of waning a bit.
Yeah, it's more like my beer is empty. Am I going to get another beer, or am I going to leave and stuff? You know, the big questions, as they say.
Oh, of course, yeah. I haven't we were talking about Burroughs earlier. Have you read the Nova trilogy from him? Because again, I've always wanted to try his science fiction, but it always seemed kind of impenetrable to me. Impenetrable. I hopefully you get what I mean. This is true. Yeah, Andrei Tarkovsky was not playing around. I'll just say that, and he ended up also dying from likely some of the radioactive stuff they were messing around in the when filming Stalker. So
yeah, that's don't do that.
Yes.
So yeah, should I get another beer or should I not get another beer, Britton? This is your stream and your choice.
I mean, maybe you could probably get another beer. I'm probably gonna go for another I don't know, 30 minutes or so. I don't know.
All right, sounds good. I'll get myself another beer. I'll be back in a minute.
All right. Yeah, no, I think the guy who played the writer also died from cancer, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that. It's been a minute since I've really studied that movie, but I do think the film is a lot more interesting than the book because I find it goes far more deeper into the concept of like desire and like what you're willing to do to, gain what you want. And like, what is that? And like, what is that? What does that say about the human condition? It's funny you're reading Animal Man, Tharnal, if you're talking about the Morrison Animal Man, because I'm actually going to be reading that starting in March. So yeah, I'm gonna at least read that. That's probably gonna take a bit. But that's gonna be my first like big Morrison read. But what else? I'm basically gonna be reading his Batman stuff, Doom Patrol. Might reread the Invisibles, which Raph might like that one. I know he likes Robert Anton Wilson. I think he would like the Invisibles. I may reread it just to see if my opinion has changed on it. Flex Mentallo. Basically all the big works of his that I haven't read yet. So, so I'm going to try and get to as many of them as I possibly can. So I'll just say that. And reread some other stuff. So I'm probably going to reread his X-Men run and also, again, the Invisibles. Because, it would be weird to not have an opinion on the Invisibles. I mean, I've read it, and I have very mixed opinions on the Invisibles, but it's not what I'd call his best work. Also, The Filth, because I've heard that's like very Philip K. Dickian, and I'm like, oh God, I gotta read that. Though The Invisibles is kind of Philip K. Dickian as well, with all the anarchy and paranoia and drug use. There's a lot of drug use in that book. In that
nothing wrong with a bit of anarchism.
No, but I'm not saying. Again, Raph, I think you would appreciate the Invisibles. I know you like Robert Anton Wilson's
Yeah.
What's that? Again, I'm blanking on names today.
The Illuminatus trilogy.
The Illuminatus trilogy. Thank you. Yeah, because Grant Morrison is really big into that, and he references it a lot in the Invisibles. I haven't read it myself, so that flew over my head.
In general, it is really interesting to see how big the cultural impact of the Illuminatus trilogy has been. It's similar to like there's a couple of these kind of sort of things where people make references to the Illuminatus trilogy that have never read Illuminatus and have no idea that those are references. Like the whole idea that of the number 23 being tied to the Illuminati. That's something that fucking Wilson and Shea came up with. But how many people who mention the Illuminati and talk about the number 23 know that that's, two fucking Playboy editors came up with something dumb.
For your answer, Ori, no, I have not, but I have read about it recently. I actually watched Owen Likes Comics' video about the Doom Patrol, kind of a history of the Doom Patrol, and it does sound like it's interesting. So I would like to read it at some point. But I want to do the Morrison one first because, well, one, it's famous, and two, I'm doing the Morrison-a-thon, so I got to get that out of the way. I almost bought the second book, the book 2 of Doom Patrol yesterday, but I didn't do it. I actually got Batman and Robin Year One instead. But I should just say the inflation has been ridiculous. I mean, hold on, let me just pull out my copy. The book I got yesterday. This book, this book right here, Batman and Robin Year One. This was $32. That is ridiculous. Like it's I mean, I guess I'm the idiot because I still bought it. Oh, whoops, I accidentally knocked down photo. I'll do that. But I guess I'm the idiot because I bought it, but it's like that should be at least like $20. Like that is not $32 worth. I'm sorry. Like prices are getting ridiculous.
Yeah. I wonder why.
Are you going to say capitalism?
No, in this case, I think it's more specifically, specific policies and stuff that have certainly not helped with like the, inflation and stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, it's dumb. Like why? Like I don't know why. It's why I go on Amazon more often now these days because it's like prices aren't actually that bad. But anyway, I have read the Doom that came to Gotham. It's not bad. It's not my favorite Mignola.
I assume that's a Doom that came to Sarnath reference, right?
Very likely, because I know that Mike Mignola is a aficionado of Gothic literature.
Well, in this case, the Doom that came to Sarnath is a Lovecraft story.
Well, he does like Lovecraft, yes. Though I find more of a Robert E. Howard influence, especially with the character of Hellboy.
Yeah.
I find Hellboy is a very kind of Howardian type of character, just without the, machismo. Because, when you see squid creatures, you're like, oh, Lovecraft. And you're like, yeah, that's... anyway.
Thornell, I'm not quite sure. I think I've read all of Lovecraft's original stories. I don't think I've read everything that is sort of like Lovecraft in posthumous collaboration with August Derleth or anyone else. So I'm lacking some of the stuff there, but I've read, I think, more or less all of his Dreamland stuff and all of his Mythos stuff and so forth. So I think I'm more or less caught up. There's certainly, stuff that I have missed because it's, this sort of like weird collaboration stuff that is kind of difficult to get a hold of. But yeah, the rest, I think I'm fairly caught up.
Yeah, Lovecraft is another thing. It's like, it's not even the racism that bothers me about his work. I just don't think he's that good of a writer. It's like I can read Robert E. Howard and have a good time with it. I can't really do that with Lovecraft. I mean, I know it's not really meant to have a good time with this stuff, but a lot of it is just obnoxiously verbose.
Yeah, with the verbosity is definitely an issue there, but it's a stylistic choice, right? Like, I understand that, and it doesn't necessarily work. I think my problem with his verbosity is that it is not as good a verbosity as Clark Ashton Smith's. Because when it comes to using obscure words, Clark Ashton Smith absolutely blows Lovecraft out of the water. And no, I think like Lovecraft, not the best writer. And that's beyond, all the other stuff, but like not the best actual writer. Have you read any Clark Ashton Smith, Britton?
I have not, but I do own the Penguin edition of his work. I would love to read it at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, but I would love to though. I
It's
know
really
he's
good. It's really good because it's sort of like if you appreciate sort of like the sense of humor or the sense of like self-awareness that you get in some of Jack Vance's writing and some of like Fritz Lieber's writing in like the Fafhrd and Grey Mouse and stuff, with there's a lot of like self-awareness in there. Clark Ashton Smith has that, but he still writes stories that are very, very Lovecraftian or very Robert E. Howard style in a lot of ways, with that sort of like tongue-in-cheek self-awareness element
I'm
in
more.
there.
I'll admit it's kind of like with William Blake. I'm more. I'm more familiar with his work as a as an artist
Yeah,
than I am as a writer.
like his Hyperborea stuff and his Zotique stuff, and there's another one. Oh gods, he has like these different sort of like universes, and especially the Hyperborea stuff is just so funny. The quest, is it called the Tale of the Seven Geeses? That is so good. It's so funny, and there's a lot of those. The Door to Saturn is another one that is really funny. Um, whatever the one is with the two necromancers that like build like empire of like zombie empire, that one is also like very sort of like macabre humor in a lot of ways, and Clark Ashton Smith
I
does
know.
macabre really well.
Yeah, I know he was a influence on like Gene Wolfe and like Fritz Leiber, if I remember correctly. Could be wrong.
Yeah, Poseidonus might be.
Oh, did you hear what I said, Raf?
Hmm?
Oh, did you hear what I said, Raf?
Yeah.
I said he was influential on Gene Wolfe. I could be wrong on that. Yeah, I still need to read Sylvia Marino Garcia. Sorry.
There's
Um,
a new edition of C.L. Moore's stories coming out later this year with a introduction by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and I'm waiting to find out which stories are in that because I already own one that has the Girel of Joiry stuff in it, the Black God's Kiss collection, and I'm like, I don't need the same thing again just to have her introduction, but if there's like another like other stories in there, then I might get that one.
I think that's Zothique. I think is one of his settings.
Yes,
Fantasy
Sophique is
settings.
one of them.
And then I always get it mixed up with Robert E. Howard's world, or maybe it's the same world, but it's like the Hyborian era or something like
No,
that.
so the thing is, the Hyborian Age is Robert E. Howard's thing. There is something that is somewhat similar to the Hyborian Age, so something in our mythical past or whatever thing. That is Hyperborea for Clark Ashton Smith, which you can get confused by that. And so Theek is a dying Earth setting, and that it is still, I guess, our world, but very, very far in the future with, everything is dying, so everyone is decadent and does crazy shit. Then he has his, what's it called? The one that is set in France, like medieval France, like 12th century, 13th century France, with cathedrals and gargoyles that are murdering people and werewolves and big corpse mechas and shit like that. Averoin, that's the one. So he has a bunch of different sort of like settings, the same way that you have like Clark Robert E. Howard has his he has his Illusion Age, which is the Call of Atlantis stories, and then you have the Hyborian Age which is the Conan stuff, and then you have the Pictish stuff with Brian McMorran, and then you have the Solomon Kane racism 2 only harder kind of thing, which is 17th
I feel like they were
century,
just trolling at that point because that is ridiculous. Hyperborea and Hyborian, it's ridiculous. I bet it's like if Clark Ashton Smith was like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna be kind of funny and just do my own riff on that with.
Thanks, Ori. That's good to know. That's more than the other one, so I guess I'll need that. No, so the thing is, like, Hyperborea is, of course, something from Greek mythology, which is, the thing that is beyond the north wind, this superior, sort of like weird, mythical, paradisal land, paradisiac land in beyond the north wind where everything is good. That is Hyperborea. That's something taken from Greek mythology. And Robert E. Howard took that and changed the words to turn it into Hyboria to have it sound slightly different. He does have Hyperboreans as people living in his Hyborian age, though. So that's how those things kind of connect.
Yeah, he created like the frog god in the Lovecraftian mythos. I listened to a couple of his Lovecraftian tales from oh god, what's the guy's name? Horror Babble. I don't know if any of you have heard of that, but if you're interested in like solid. He's also been doing Conan recently, so it's been fun.
I'm not sure what you mean by killed by a frog lady. Although wait. I think I know which one you mean. I just got confused with the story about Sathagwa, which is that Hyperborean story of the two thieves, with the one thief that has like lost his one arm, like one hand, when they rob the temple of Sathagwa and then get trapped down by the toad god Sathagwa. But I don't think that's the one you mean. And then I got it confused with the sword and sorcery stories by or flintlock and sorcery stories by Lavitidar, which do have weird frog sex, of course. So I get my frog ladies confused, is what I'm saying. Yeah, I get my Clark Ashton Smith and Gorell of the Pot-Bellied God mixed up there. But yeah. No, Clark Ashton Smith, really interesting. He also has this like weird sci-fi setting that I find super fascinating because it's like 1920s sci-fi, right? Like 1920s, early 1930s sci-fi, which is lots of stuff is done by atomics and that are not really defined, and clockwork stuff. So his idea of spaceships is so different from everything that comes later on because actual like fucking rocketry hasn't really been like solid or like liquid fuel rocketry. It hasn't really been explored at the time when he's making up spaceships. So his ideas of spaceships are just weird. And you have this group of people that have this like atomics-driven spaceship, and their goal is to actually circumnavigate the universe, I guess. And then they end up in all these weird places, and it's just really interesting as a sci-fi story because its idea of science fiction is so different from anything else that you might read nowadays.
Yeah, I think what also kind of bothers me about like Lovecraft stuff, it's so freaking neurotic. Like all of his stuff is just like, oh, look at that over there, and you're just like, what? Look at that squid monster, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here with that.
Oh, yeah. Now I remember the one that you mean, the Averoin one with the frog witch, which is not the same one as the one with Gilles the werewolf, but it's yeah. No, I know which one you mean. That one is really fascinating. So yeah, don't fuck around with frog witches. Might be a bad idea. God, I should probably go back and reread those. I think like one of the first things I did on my YouTube channel was actually make a video on Clark Ashton Smith back in the heady days of like really early ago. So I should probably go back and reread some of those stories at some point.
Yeah, I still need to read Clark Ashton Smith because I haven't read any of his stuff yet. Maybe someday I'll get her. It's as you always say.
I mean, the good thing with like someone like Clark Ashton Smith is that similarly to Robert E. Howard or H.P. Lovecraft, because it's short stories, you can always just read a couple and then go like, well, I'm going to come back to this later on. You don't have to commit to like reading 800 pages or whatever. You can go like, I'll read like 20 pages of stories and then I'm done, or 30 or whatever.
Oh yeah, Thomas Dish is another one I've always wanted to read. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. If anyone has any recommendations of Thomas Dish, you can feel free to let me know, because I would like to read some of his stuff at some point.
Thornall, I personally really enjoy Tim Powers. It varies in quality. I think Declare is excellent, is absolutely really, really, really good, which is, it's basically your Cold War spy thriller kind of thing, but with a gin added, both the drink and the magical creature. I really enjoyed that one. The Anubis Gates is really good, which has like Samuel Taylor Coleridge in it, and weird supernatural clowns and time travel and Egyptian gods and shit. Really good book. I have read The Stress of Her Regard, which is vampires and Percy Shelley and Lord Byron. So that's interesting. I think Mary Shelley is also showing up for a second there. Been a while since I read that one, and obviously on Stranger Tides is pirate stuff, and it's also good. Like Tim Powers, I really enjoy his approach. Basically picking a thing in history and going like, well, this piece of history is really weird. Could it all make sense if I add this specific element of magic? And suddenly it all makes sense. And yeah, so it's Kim Philby and the Cambridge Five defecting to the to the Soviet Union is because of gin magic, and suddenly it all makes sense. And it's really good. I highly recommend reading Tim Powers, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, my friend Sam has been reading a lot of Tim Powers lately. He's really gotten into him. I just haven't really. I'm always kind of wary of that kind of 70s, pulpy sci-fi fantasy of that period. But maybe Tim Powers is good.
Yes, Thornall. Egyptian gods and magical clowns in 19th and 18th century London to, make it all work out. It's really good. Yes, I know about The Escapement. I still want to read that. Unfortunately, there's no audiobook, so I will have to, I guess, at some point just bite the bullet and get an ebook and have my screen reader read it to me, which sucks, but what can you do? So there's that. There's going to be like his Judge D stories are going to get like a full-on like a collection ebook release this year, I think, as well, which I'm also looking forward to, I guess.
I've heard his Prisoner novel is also quite worth the read. Thomas Dish, or however you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
Maybe Camp Concentration will try that. I don't know. The Escapement. What's that?
The Escapement is a story by Lavit Hidar, which is Western with killer clowns.
Oh. Gotta love that.
So I guess it's if you mix Pennywise and the Gunslinger from Stephen King and do it the Lavit Hidar way, then you get The Escapement. Sort of, maybe? I don't know. So in the Anubis Gates, the evil clown is head of like the beggars and orphans street gang. So it's imagine the guy from Oliver Twist not being an anti-Semitic caricature, but instead an evil killer clown.
Wait, who?
What's his face? The guy in Oliver Twist who runs all the orphan
Fagin?
gangs. Yeah. Imagine that being a weird magic horror clown on stilts. That's what you get in the Anubis Gates.
Huh.
I feel like isn't that the premise of the IT Crowd series show at the end of the day? Clowns that fix your computer.
I do love me some Oliver Twist, but yes, I would say Fagin is not the one that is aged best.
No. I don't know if I read a lot of funny shit. I mean, I read all of Discworld. I guess that counts. Neom is really good. Have you read Central Station? Because Central Station and Neom are so set in the same universe. There's some cross references. You don't have to read Central Station first, but Neom does reference that. There's also a lot of like Philip K. Dick references in Neom. It's a really good book. I enjoyed it. So yeah, have fun with that.
Oh yeah. Billy Joel plays the Artful Dodger. Yeah, I've seen that one. Sykes is it's pretty good antagonist in Sykes in that film.
Yeah, there's so many references in Neom. There's the Simac stuff. There's the Philip K. Dick stuff. There's the well, I mean, there's the whole Messiah thing going on. I have not watched that one either. I've watched the Robin Hood one by the Disney Robin Hood one, which is the scene where they put the snake in the beer barrel, and then he gets very happy because he's in the beer barrel and gets drunk. That has stayed with me for I don't know what reasons.
Robin Hood and Little John walking in the forest. You know, good times. Good times. Even though I don't really like Richard the Lionheart. I think he's a bit overrated.
Yeah.
Not that King John was like a good guy by any means. He's really bad. I mean, you know, they had to make him sign the Magna Carta, so you know that tells you how bad he was as a king. But you know,
Look, from where I'm standing, being bad at being a king is actually a good thing. So I guess critical support to King John. Maybe not. Disney was the best when Disney was super psychedelic. When you had pink elephants on parade, or the Heffalump and Woozle song in Winnie the Pooh, in the Winnie the Pooh movie. That's when Disney was at its best, when they somehow tried to make family friendly entertainment, and Disney was really into that all the time. But somehow animators could still get away with like having Heffalumps change colors and steal Pooh's honey, and then play harp on the drips of honey that are coming down from their trunks and stuff. Like, how you can design that and no one in the entire design process was on LSD. I have no idea how that happened. I assume it just didn't happen that way, and somehow
I'd say there was less oversight. It's kind of the same reason I find guys like Chester Himes and Jim Thompson could write about like child molestation and cross dressing. Because you know noir was kind of viewed as this like pulp entertainment, so they were just kind of like, "Yeah, I'll go away, do whatever you want." At least that's my speculation. I could be wrong on that, but you know.
Yeah, but I've only seen the Aristocats once, so I don't remember anything of that. I've obviously, yeah, for reasons, I've obviously watched the Winnie the Pooh movie way too many times. So there's that.
Oh, bother. Yeah, I had a friend of mine who didn't really, was kind of railing on Winnie the Pooh, and he's just like, I just didn't like the coddling tone, is what he said. And I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. I don't give a shit.
Have you
We're not-
recommended that Michael Moorcock essay to him, to your friend?
Oh no, he's read it. He really enjoys that
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, I think so.
That's where much of his criticisms of like novels of Lord of the Rings comes from. I've seen some of the animated Winnie the Pooh. I enjoy it. It's fun. It's good stuff.
The book is actually really good. I highly recommend reading it at least once.
A Pooh crime story. I got to read this at some point. What is that? I was actually in the comic. Like I mentioned, I was in the comic shop yesterday. And I saw they had a Muppets noir comic. I'm just like, what is that? Got to read this at some point.
Well, Thornell, do yourself a favor and just look at the Heffalump song from the Winnie the Pooh movie. You will not regret this. This is, I mean, you might.
Well, Thornell,
but this is definitely, this is like peak psychedelic Disney. This is like really fascinating. It's a song, and the heffalumps are, changing colors, and they come in all kinds of shapes, including polka dots. That's like some of their colors and stuff. And they steal Winnie the Pooh's honey, and because they are sort of like somewhat elephant shaped in that they have like elephant like trunks, they're stealing the honey, and then they curl the trunk up, and then the honey is dripping down in these like strings of honey from the trunk, and then they start playing the melody. They're using the strings of honey to play harp, to play them like harp strings. That's the level of psychedelic that we're talking about here. So watch that thing. It's going to change your world, I guess.
Well, if you miss Hellboy Thornell, I would recommend.
Wait, is the Piglet Delivers Pooh story? Is that the thing that like years ago Tidar did on Twitter? Her name was Kenga. I knew she was trouble as soon as she entered. It's like, are you Pooh the detective? I live under the name of Saunders. Part, or is that a different one? Because I've read that like so many times.
But anyway, Darnell, if you want something kind of like Hellboy, I would recommend Hillbilly by Eric Powell, which is a really good kind of Conan riff with some gorgeous artwork. There you go, right there. And from the same author, if you want something a little more pulpy, The Goon is glorious. If you love that kind of offbeat Hellboy humor, you will just have a good time with The Goon. It is one of the funniest comics I've ever read. It's so good. Like, just in terms of entertainment value, good time. It's a good time.
I would just really appreciate if the sequel to Hellboy would be like Hellman, or maybe Hell Young Adult.
Well, there are stories about young Hellboy where he's a kid, and it's quite fun. It's one where he eats pancakes, which is quite good.
Yeah. I still have to read your messages. As I said yesterday, I've been very much absent from most of Discord for the last weeks. This coming week is going to be tough. I have like 5 deadlines of stuff that I need to sort out. Plus, I need to call my dentist. This is going to be an interesting week, is what I'm saying. And the video I recorded earlier today is still fucking rendering because my re-recording took longer than I thought, and now I guess it'll have to wait until, I don't know, Tuesday or so. Anyway, my beer is empty again.
I was about to end this, so that actually works out.
Perfect timing.
Exactly.
As if we had planned this. Yes, Hellgeezer would be definitely the end there. That would be really good.
Yeah, Hell Geezer would be fun though. I guess if you want to read that, you can read Hellboy in Hell, where he's basically just chilling out in hell for a good amount of time. But yeah, no. Anyway, we've been going on for a while. My family's been in there. I'm gonna go hang out with them. But yes, this has been fun.
Yeah.
There won't be one of these next weekend because I will be in Florida. But hopefully we'll have this next time. I don't know, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And well, and until next time, thank you, Raph, for coming on here and hanging out for a bit.
Yeah, see you around.
All right, take care, everyone.